Ryan Mercer stood frozen in his driveway, coffee mug halfway to his lips, staring at the woman who'd just stepped out of the moving truck next door. 10 years. 10 years since he'd last seen Ava Brooks, and in all that time he'd never stopped wondering what might have been if he'd just found the courage to tell her the truth. Now she was here, 30 feet away, close enough to hear his heart hammering against his ribs. The universe, it seemed, didn't believe in letting go of unfinished business. If you've ever let someone slip away because you were too afraid to speak up, stay with me until the end of this story. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this journey travels. Sometimes life gives you a second chance, but only if you're brave enough to take it. The alarm went off at 5:47 a.m., same as it did every weekday morning. Ryan Mercer's hand shot out from under the covers with practiced precision, silencing the phone before the second beep could sound. In the room down the hall, his 8-year-old daughter Lily was still sleeping, and he intended to keep it that way for at least another 20 minutes. He'd perfected this morning routine over the past 3 years, ever since Claire had walked out. Wake before dawn, shower in near silence, start the coffee maker on its lowest setting, prep Lily's lunch, lay out her clothes for school. By the time she wandered into the kitchen, rubbing sleep from her eyes, breakfast would be waiting and the day would already be half organized. Ryan pulled on his running gear in the dark, moving through his bedroom like a shadow. Through the window, Portland's early autumn sky was just beginning to lighten, streaks of pale gray cutting through the darkness. He slipped downstairs, laced up his shoes on the front porch, and stepped out into the cool morning air. The neighborhood was quiet. Oak Street had always been quiet. 12 modest houses built in the 70s, mature trees lining both sides, the kind of place where people knew each other's names but respected each other's privacy. Ryan had lived here for 6 years. It was safe, affordable, and exactly 17 minutes from his daughter's school. He stretched against the porch railing, working the stiffness from his shoulders. 32 wasn't old, but some mornings his body felt like it belonged to someone twice his age. 3 years of single parenthood, of balancing a demanding job as a project manager with bedtime stories and parent-teacher conferences, had taken its toll. He was about to start his run when he noticed the moving truck. It sat in the driveway of the house next door, a mid-sized U-Haul with its rear door rolled open. The house had been empty for nearly 2 months, ever since old Mr. Patterson had moved into assisted living. Ryan had wondered who'd buy it. The place needed work, new roof, updated plumbing, probably a complete kitchen renovation. Someone was already awake inside the truck, moving boxes. Ryan could hear the scrape of cardboard against metal, the soft thud of items being set down. He checked his watch. Not yet 6 in the morning. Either his new neighbor was extremely motivated or running from something. He decided not to investigate. New neighbors meant new complications, potential friendships that required energy he didn't have, or worse, awkward boundary conversations about noise and property lines. He'd learned to keep his world small and manageable. Work, Lily, the essentials. Everything else was negotiable. Ryan headed down the sidewalk at an easy pace, letting his muscles warm gradually. His route took him through the neighborhood and around Riverside Park, a 40-minute loop that gave him just enough time to clear his head before the day's responsibilities kicked in. The run helped. It always did. By the time he returned, the sky had brightened to a soft blue-gray, and his mind had shifted into its usual morning gear, mental checklist of tasks, anticipation of meetings, the ever-present background calculation of how to fit 8 hours of work into 6 so he could pick Lily up on time. The moving truck was still there when he jogged back up Oak Street, but now there were more signs of activity. Boxes stacked on the front lawn, a lamp propped against the porch railing, the sound of footsteps inside the house. Ryan slowed to a walk as he approached his driveway, breathing hard, sweat cooling on his neck. That's when she emerged from the front door. Ryan stopped walking. She was carrying a medium-sized box, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, wearing jeans and a faded blue t-shirt. She set the box down carefully on the porch, straightened, and turned toward the street, and looked directly at him. For a moment, the world contracted to the space between them. 30 feet of sidewalk and lawn, but it might as well have been 30 miles or 30 inches. Ryan couldn't move, couldn't breathe. His brain was trying to process what his eyes were showing him, but the information didn't make sense. Ava Brooks. She stood completely still on the porch, one hand still resting on the box she'd just set down. Her expression cycled through surprise, recognition, and something else he couldn't name. Her lips parted slightly, but no words came out. 10 years. 10 years since he'd last seen her, and she looked exactly the same and completely different all at once. The same dark eyes, the same way of holding herself with quiet confidence. But there were subtle changes too, a maturity in her features, a guardedness that hadn't been there before. "Ryan?" Her voice carried across the lawn, tentative and stunned. He forced himself to breathe, to move, to close the distance between the sidewalk and her property line. "Ava, His voice came out rough, and he cleared his throat. "I didn't know you were moving to Portland. I didn't know you lived here." She descended the porch steps slowly, as if approaching something that might vanish if she moved too quickly. "On this street, next door." They stood there, separated by a strip of grass and a decade of silence. "This is—" Ryan shook his head, trying to find words that fit the magnitude of the moment. "Unexpected." A small, uncertain laugh escaped her. That's one word for it. The last time he'd seen Ava Brooks, they'd been 22, standing in the parking lot of their college apartment complex on graduation day. He'd wanted to tell her then, had practiced the words 100 times. "I have feelings for you. I think I'm in love with you. Don't move to Seattle without knowing how I feel." But fear had locked the words in his throat. Fear of ruining their friendship. Fear of making things awkward. Fear of rejection. So he'd hugged her goodbye, told her to stay in touch, and watched her drive away with her future packed into the back of her sedan. They'd texted sporadically for 6 months. Then the gaps between messages had grown longer. A year later, he'd heard through mutual friends that she'd gotten engaged. He'd sent a congratulations message and received a polite thank you. After that, silence. "How long have you been here?" Ava asked, breaking the quiet that had settled between them. 6 years. We moved here when my daughter was 2. Something flickered across her face. "You have a daughter." "Lily. She's 8 now." Ryan gestured vaguely toward his house. "What about you? What brought you to Portland?" "New job. Fresh start." She wrapped her arms around herself, a defensive gesture he remembered from late-night study sessions when she was processing something difficult. "My marriage ended about a year ago. I needed a change. I'm sorry." The words felt inadequate, but they were all he had. "Don't be. It was the right decision for both of us." She glanced back at the house, at the boxes still waiting to be unpacked. "I just didn't expect to land next door to someone from my past." "Small world," Ryan said, and immediately regretted how trite it sounded. Ava smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Apparently," an awkward pause settled between them. Ryan was acutely aware of his running clothes, the sweat drying on his skin, the fact that he probably looked like he'd just emerged from a very specific circle of athletic hell. Ava, despite clearly being in the middle of moving, somehow managed to look composed. "I should let you get back to unpacking," he said finally. "But if you need anything, tools, directions, recommendations for pizza places, I'm right next door. Thank you. I appreciate that." She took a small step backward, creating more distance. "It's good to see you, Ryan." "You too." He forced himself to turn away, to walk up his own driveway, to open his front door and step inside. Only when the door closed behind him did he allow himself to lean against it, eyes closed, heart still racing from more than just the run. Ava Brooks. Next door. The woman he'd spent years trying to forget, now living 30 feet away. The universe, Ryan decided, had a terrible sense of humor. But the rest of the morning passed in a blur of automatic movements. Shower, coffee, waking Lily with gentle shoulder shakes and the promise of chocolate chip pancakes. He went through the motions, but his mind was stuck on the front lawn, replaying those 5 minutes over and over. "Dad, you're burning them," Lily said, pointing at the griddle. Ryan jerked back to attention, flipping the pancakes just before they crossed from golden brown to charcoal black. "Sorry, kiddo, mind wandered." She peered at him with the unsettling perceptiveness that 8-year-olds sometimes possessed. "You look weird." "Weird how?" "I don't know. Spacey?" She accepted the plate of pancakes he slid in front of her, drowning them in syrup with the enthusiasm of someone who didn't have to worry about blood sugar. "Did something happen on your run?" "No." "Well, yes. We have new neighbors." He poured himself more coffee, his third cup of the morning. "Someone moved in next door." "Is it a kid?" Lily asked hopefully. "Please say it's a kid my age." "It's a woman. She moved in by herself." "Oh." Lily's interest evaporated as quickly as it had appeared. She returned her attention to her pancakes, swinging her legs under the table. Ryan watched her eat, feeling the familiar mixture of love and terror that came with single parenthood. Everything he did was for her. The stable job he'd stayed in despite being offered more exciting but riskier opportunities. This house in a good school district, the careful routine that gave her life structure and predictability. Claire had wanted adventure. She'd wanted spontaneity and freedom, and a life that wasn't defined by bedtimes and PTA meetings. When Lily was 5, Claire had announced she was moving to California to find herself, and Ryan had become a full-time single father overnight. He'd learned to manage. More than manage, he'd built a good life for his daughter. But it meant he'd closed off entire sections of himself. Romance, spontaneity, the possibility of letting someone new into their carefully constructed world. All of it had gone into a box labeled "Someday Maybe" and pushed to the back of a mental shelf. And now Ava was next door. Ryan dropped Lily at school at 8:15, received a distracted goodbye kiss on the cheek, and watched her run toward her best friend Maya with the boundless energy he could barely remember possessing. Then it was on to work. A 15-minute drive to the office building where Morrison and Associates occupied the 3rd floor. He'd been with the company for 7 years, working his way up from junior project manager to senior project manager to, as of 6 months ago, director of project operations. It was steady work, well-paying, with good benefits and the kind of flexibility that allowed him to leave at 3:30 to pick up his daughter. His assistant, Jamie, looked up as he entered. "Morning, you have 3 messages already, 2 from the Hendricks account and 1 from your ex-wife." Ryan stopped mid-step. "Claire called the office?" "Left a voicemail on your direct line about 20 minutes ago." Jamie's expression remained professionally neutral, but Ryan had worked with her long enough to read the concern underneath. "Said it was important." "It's always important," Ryan muttered, heading into his office. He set down his bag, hung up his jacket, and stared at the blinking red light on his phone for a solid 30 seconds before pressing play. Claire's voice filled the small office, bright and breezy in that way that meant she wanted something. "Hey Ryan, it's me. Listen, I know this is last minute, but I'm going to be in Portland next week for work, and I was thinking it would be great to spend some time with Lily. Maybe I could take her for the weekend. Let me know." "Thanks, bye." Ryan deleted the message and sat down heavily in his chair. Claire saw Lily maybe 3 times a year, always with minimal notice, always framed as if she were doing him a favor. And every time Lily came back quiet and withdrawn, processing the gap between the mother she wanted and the mother she had. He'd call her back later. Right now, he had actual work to do. The morning disappeared into back-to-back meetings and email chains that seemed to multiply every time he tried to clear his inbox. By noon, Ryan had managed to move 3 projects forward, put out 2 fires, and consume enough coffee to power a small city. He was reviewing budget spreadsheets when his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Hi Ryan, it's Ava. Got your number from the neighborhood directory. Hope that's not creepy. Just wanted to say thanks again for the welcome this morning. If the pizza place offer still stands, I could use a recommendation." Moving day hunger is real. Ryan read the message 3 times, his thumb hovering over the keyboard. He told himself this was just being neighborly, helping someone new to the area. Nothing more complicated than that. Not creepy at all. For pizza, Tony's on Morrison if you want traditional, Lovely's 50-50 if you want creative. Both deliver. How's the unpacking going? The response came within a minute, slowly. Turns out I own way more books than furniture. Thanks for the recommendations. He could picture her surrounded by boxes, probably organizing them by category before she even started unpacking. Ava had always been methodical, the kind of person who made lists for her lists. "Let me know if you need help hauling anything heavy," he typed, then immediately questioned whether that was too forward. But it was too late. The message was sent. "I might take you up on that. Some of these boxes feel like they're packed with rocks. Ryan set his phone down and tried to return to the budget spreadsheet, but the numbers kept blurring. His mind was next door, wondering what Ava's life looked like now, what had happened in her marriage, why she'd chosen Portland, why she'd chosen Oak Street, why, after 10 years of successfully avoiding each other, the universe had decided to make them neighbors. Mom. He picked up Lily at 3:30, listened to her detailed recap of the social dynamics of third-grade recess, stopped at the grocery store for dinner supplies, and pulled into his driveway at 4:15. Ava's car, a silver Honda Civic that looked a few years old, was parked in front of her house, and he could see lights on through the windows. "Can I play at Maya's?" Lily asked as they unloaded groceries. "Not today. Homework first, then you can have screen time before dinner." "But Dad—" "Not negotiable, Lil." She grumbled but accepted the decree, grabbing her backpack and trudging inside. Ryan followed with the grocery bags, already planning dinner in his head. Chicken stir-fry, quick and simple, leaving enough time to look over Lily's math homework before a knock at the door interrupted his mental meal prep. Ryan set down the groceries and opened the front door. Ava stood on his porch, holding a bottle of wine and looking slightly apologetic. "I know you said if I needed anything," she began, "but I'm realizing I don't have a corkscrew, and after the day I've had, this bottle and I have a very important appointment." Ryan smiled despite himself. "Come in. I think we have one somewhere." She stepped inside cautiously, taking in the lived-in chaos of his home. Lily's shoes by the door, drawings on the refrigerator, the general atmosphere of a house where an 8-year-old was actively involved in decision-making. "Lily's doing homework," Ryan explained, rummaging through the kitchen drawer where useful items went to hide. "She'll be out in a minute to interrogate you thoroughly." "I look forward to it." Ava set the wine bottle on the counter, glancing around with undisguised curiosity. "Your house is nice. Feels like a home." "It's organized chaos at best." He finally located the corkscrew wedged behind a tangle of batteries and rubber bands. "Here you go." "Thank you." Their fingers brushed as she took it, and Ryan felt the contact like a small electric shock. If Ava noticed, she didn't show it. "I'll get this back to you tomorrow." "Keep it. I think we have 3 for some reason." "The mystery of accumulating kitchen tools," Ava said lightly. "I'm pretty sure I have 4 spatulas and no idea where they came from." A small voice came from the hallway. "Who are you?" They both turned to find Lily standing in the doorway, eyeing Ava with open curiosity. "Lily, this is Ava. She just moved in next door." Ryan gestured between them. "Ava, this is my daughter Lily." "Hi, Lily." Ava's expression softened in a way Ryan remembered from their college days when she'd volunteered at an after-school program. "Nice to meet you." "You're really pretty," Lily announced with the brutal honesty of childhood. "Lily," Ryan started, but Ava laughed. "Thank you. So are you." She crouched slightly to be at Lily's eye level. "Your dad tells me you were in 3rd grade." "Yeah, Mrs. Henderson's class. We're learning multiplication." "That's a good one. Wait until you get to fractions. Those are secretly fun." Lily looked skeptical. "Math isn't supposed to be fun." "The best parts of life are things that aren't supposed to be fun but surprise you," Ava said, and something in her tone made Ryan wonder if she was talking about more than mathematics. Lily seemed to consider this. "Do you have any kids?" "No, just me." "Oh, do you have a dog?" "Not yet, maybe someday." "We're not allowed to have pets," Lily said sadly. "Dad says we're too busy." Ryan felt a familiar pang of guilt. They'd had this conversation multiple times. A dog would require time and attention he simply didn't have to give. "We've talked about this, kiddo." Lily ignored him, still focused on Ava. "Are you married?" "Lily, that's personal." "It's okay," Ava said quickly. "No, I'm not married anymore. It's just me now." "Like us," Lily said, apparently satisfied with this answer. "We're just us too. Me and Dad." Something passed across Ava's face, too quick for Ryan to interpret. "Sounds like a good team." "We are." Lily straightened with pride. "Dad says we're the dream team." "I'm sure you are." Ava stood, holding up the corkscrew. "I should let you both get back to your evening. Thank you for this, Ryan." "Anytime." He walked her to the door, hyper-aware of Lily watching them with interest. On the porch, Ava paused. "She's wonderful," she said quietly. She's my whole world, Ryan replied, and meant it with every fiber of his being. Ava met his eyes, and for a moment he saw something in her expression that looked like longing, or maybe regret, or maybe he was projecting his own complicated emotions onto her. Good night, Ryan. Good night. He watched her walk across the lawn to her own house, illuminated by the porch light he'd installed last spring. When she disappeared inside, Ryan closed the door and turned to find Lily grinning at him. What? He asked warily. You like her? What? No, she's our neighbor. I was being polite. You were smiling weird. I don't smile weird. Yes, you do. You smile different when you like someone. Lily crossed her arms with the confidence of someone who'd cracked a major case. You smiled at her like you smiled at Miss Peterson at parent-teacher conferences. I was being friendly to your teacher. Uh-huh. Lily's grin widened. Sure, Dad. Ryan pointed toward the living room. Homework, now. And stop trying to analyze my facial expressions. She giggled and skipped away, leaving Ryan standing in the kitchen, wondering when his 8-year-old had become so observant and whether he was really that transparent. He looked out the kitchen window toward Ava's house. A light was on in what he guessed was the kitchen. He could see her shadow moving past the window, unpacking her new life. After 10 years, Ava Brooks was back in his orbit, and Ryan had absolutely no idea what to do about it. The next morning followed the same routine. Alarm at 5:47, run through the neighborhood, return home to start breakfast. Except this time, when Ryan jogged past Ava's house, she was sitting on her front porch with a cup of coffee, watching the sunrise. She raised her hand in a small wave as he passed. He waved back, nearly tripping over his own feet in the process, and forced himself to keep running. When he returned 20 minutes later, she was still there. Morning, she called as he slowed to a walk in front of his house. Morning, you're up early. Couldn't sleep. New house, unfamiliar sounds. She lifted her coffee mug. Figured I might as well enjoy the sunrise. Ryan walked over to the property line, breathing hard from the run. How's the unpacking going? About 60% done. Turns out I'm very good at packing and terrible at deciding where things should go in a new space. She studied him with an expression he couldn't quite read. You run every morning? Monday through Friday. Helps clear my head before the day starts. I used to run, Ava said. In college. Remember? He remembered. Early morning runs around campus, Ava matching his pace step for step, their breath creating clouds in the cold air. They'd talk about everything and nothing. Classes, dreams, fears, the future that seemed both infinite and terrifyingly close. I remember, Ryan said. I stopped after... She trailed off, looking down at her coffee. After a lot of things changed. The weight of unspoken history settled between them. 10 years of changes, of lives that had diverged and now inexplicably intersected again. You could start again, Ryan offered. If you wanted. Ava looked up, and something in her expression made his heart rate spike for reasons that had nothing to do with running. Maybe I will. Over the next 2 weeks, a pattern emerged. Ava would be on her porch in the mornings, sometimes reading, sometimes just sitting with her coffee. Ryan would wave as he ran past, and she'd wave back. Small, simple, nothing that required more than a moment of acknowledgement. But those moments started to accumulate. Then one morning, as Ryan was stretching on his porch before his run, Ava emerged from her house in running gear. Mind if I join you? She asked. Ryan's heart did something complicated in his chest. Not at all. Fair warning, I'm not fast, but I'm consistent. Sounds perfect. They fell into step together, finding an easy rhythm. For the first 10 minutes, they ran in silence, just the sound of their footfalls and breathing in the early morning quiet. Then Ava spoke. I'd forgotten how much I missed this. The running, I mean. The quiet before the world wakes up. It's the only time my brain isn't moving at full speed, Ryan admitted. Once Lily wakes up, it's all forward momentum until bedtime. Single parenting looks exhausting. It is, but it's also, he searched for the right words, the most important thing I'll ever do, so the exhaustion feels worthwhile. They ran through Riverside Park, past the empty playground and the pond where ducks were just beginning to stir. The sky was lightening gradually, pink and gold bleeding into blue. Can I ask you something? Ava said as they rounded the path back toward Oak Street. Sure. When you talk about Lily's mother, you said we moved here, but you only mentioned Lily living with you. What happened? Ryan had learned to tell this story without emotion, a simple recitation of facts. Claire left when Lily was 5. She wanted a different life, one without the responsibilities of parenthood. We're officially divorced, she pays child support, and she visits a few times a year. It's not ideal, but we've made it work. I'm sorry, Ava said quietly. That must have been incredibly hard. The hardest part was explaining it to Lily. She kept asking when Mommy was coming home. Ryan felt the old ache, dulled by time, but never fully gone. Eventually, she stopped asking. They slowed to a walk as they approached their houses, both breathing hard. For what it's worth, Ava said, you're doing an amazing job. I can see it in how Lily talks to you, how comfortable she is. She feels safe. The compliment hit Ryan harder than expected. Thank you. That means a lot. Ava smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes. Same time tomorrow? I'll be here. Yet, the morning runs became their routine. 3 days a week, sometimes 4, Ava would be waiting on her porch in running gear and they'd head out together. They talked about safe topics, work. Ava was a marketing director for a nonprofit, Ryan still managing projects. Portland's restaurant scene, book recommendations, the ongoing saga of Lily's friendship dynamics at school. What they didn't talk about, college. Their friendship then. The fact that for 2 years they'd been inseparable, and then they'd graduated and stopped talking entirely. The unspoken history was always there, hovering at the edges of every conversation. One Saturday morning, Ryan was in his garage attempting to fix Lily's bicycle. The chain had come off again, and he was questioning both his mechanical skills and his decision to buy a bike with gears, when Ava appeared at the end of his driveway. Need help? She offered. Ryan looked up from where he was crouched next to the bike, grease on his hands and frustration on his face. Unless you're secretly a bicycle mechanic, I think I'm beyond help. I'm not a mechanic, but I did work at a bike shop one summer in college. She walked into the garage, assessing the situation. Chain came off? For the 3rd time this month. Let me see. Ava knelt beside him, examining the derailleur. Her shoulder brushed against his, and Ryan had to force himself to focus on the bike instead of her proximity. The tension's wrong. That's why it keeps happening. Hand me that wrench? Ryan passed her the tool, watching as she made a series of small adjustments with practiced efficiency. Within 5 minutes, she had the chain back on and properly tensioned. Try it now, she said. He spun the pedal. The chain moved smoothly through the gears, no catching, no slipping. How did you... Like I said, bike shop. Summer between sophomore and junior year. She wiped her hands on a rag, looking pleased with herself. The owner was very patient about teaching me actual mechanical skills. I can't believe you remembered that. Muscle memory. Ava stood, brushing off her knees. Some things stick with you. Lily chose that moment to run into the garage, Maya following close behind. Dad, can we... Oh, hi, Miss Ava. Hi, Lily. Hi. Ava looked questioningly at the second girl. This is Maya, Lily supplied. She's my best friend. We want to know if we can ride bikes to the park. Your bike is fixed, Ryan said, but I think the park is too far for just the 2 of you. What if Miss Ava came with us? Lily asked with the strategic thinking of a seasoned negotiator. Ryan looked at Ava apologetically. You don't have to. I'd love to, Ava said, and she sounded like she meant it. I could use a bike ride. Unless you'd rather, No, that would be great, actually. Ryan stood, already running through his mental list of weekend tasks. I have some work emails I need to catch up on, if you're really sure you don't mind. I'm sure. Come on, girls. Let's get this adventure started. Ryan watched them head off, Lily and Maya on their bikes, Ava walking between them, listening to their animated chatter. Something in his chest felt simultaneously lighter and heavier. He went inside and opened his laptop, but found himself staring out the window instead of at his emails, thinking about how easily Ava had folded into the edges of their life, how natural it felt to have her around, how dangerous that feeling was. They returned an hour later, the girls pink-cheeked and energized, Ava looking more relaxed than Ryan had seen her since she'd moved in. They're very good at the swings, Ava reported as the girls ran inside to get water. and very committed to explaining the complex social rules of the playground. Third-grade politics are no joke, Ryan said. There's apparently a whole hierarchy around who sits where at lunch. I remember that age. Everything felt so crucial and permanent. She leaned against the porch railing, looking thoughtful. It's strange how much changes and how much stays the same. Is that what moving back here feels like? Ryan asked. Things changing and staying the same? Ava was quiet for a moment. I didn't move back here because of the past, if that's what you're asking. I took this job because it was a good opportunity, and I chose this neighborhood because it seemed quiet and safe. I had no idea you lived here. I wasn't asking, but yes, she continued. There's something strange about being back in Oregon, in Portland specifically, like I'm occupying two timelines at once. Who I was when I left and who I am now. Ryan understood that feeling more than he could articulate. Do you ever think about college? About how different things could have been if we'd made different choices? The question hung in the air between them, heavier than he'd intended. Ava met his eyes, and he saw the answer there before she spoke. All the time, she said quietly, especially lately. His phone buzzed in his pocket, breaking the moment. Ryan pulled it out to find a text from his boss about a client emergency. He swore under his breath. Problem? Ava asked. Work crisis. I need to jump on a call. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. I'm sorry. Go. Handle it. She pushed off from the railing. I should get back anyway. Lots of unpacking still to do. Thank you for taking the girls to the park. Really, it helped a lot. Any time, Ava said, and the way she said it made it sound like a promise. The client emergency consumed most of Ryan's weekend. By Monday morning, he was running on minimal sleep and maximum caffeine, which is probably why he didn't notice Ava standing on her porch until he'd already started his run. She jogged down her steps to join him, falling into their usual pace. Rough weekend? She asked, taking in his appearance. Client meltdown. Spent most of Sunday damage controlling. Ryan shook his head, trying to clear the fog of exhaustion. How was your weekend? Quiet. Finished unpacking the last of the boxes. Realized I have no idea how to decorate a house by myself. I always had someone else's opinion to bounce ideas off. Claire made all those decisions when we lived together, Ryan admitted. After she left, I just kept everything the same. Easier that way. They ran in silence for a while, their breathing synchronized. The morning was cool and crisp, the first real hint of autumn in the air. Can I ask you something? Ava said as they rounded into the park. Sure. That day we graduated, when we said goodbye in the parking lot. She kept her eyes forward, not looking at him. Did you mean it when you said we'd stay in touch? Ryan's heart rate spiked, and it had nothing to do with the run. Yes, I meant it. Then why didn't we? It was the question he'd asked himself 1,000 times. I don't know. Life, I guess. You were in Seattle. I was here. We both got busy. And then he paused, choosing his words carefully. I heard you got engaged. I didn't want to complicate things. Complicate things, Ava repeated, her tone unreadable. That's one way to put it. What would you call it? She slowed to a walk, and Ryan matched her pace. They were near the pond now, early morning light dancing on the water. Honestly? Ava turned to face him. I'd call it us both being too scared to say what we actually felt. The words landed like a physical blow. Ryan stared at her, his mind racing. What do you mean? I mean, I waited, Ryan. That whole last semester I waited for you to say something, to give me some indication that we were more than just friends. And when you didn't, when graduation came and you just hugged me goodbye like I was anyone else, I figured I'd misread everything. You didn't misread anything, Ryan said, the words tumbling out before he could stop them. I was in love with you. I was terrified and in love and convinced that if I told you, I'd lose you completely. Ava's expression shifted through several emotions too quickly for him to track. So instead, you lost me slowly. Yes, Ryan said simply. That's exactly what happened. They stood there by the pond, the morning crystallizing around them. A decade of what-ifs and might-have-beens finally spoken aloud. I was in love with you too, Ava said finally. Just so you know, I moved to Seattle and met David and tried to convince myself that timing was everything, that we'd missed our chance, but part of me always wondered if we'd just been too afraid. We were definitely too afraid, Ryan said. I was, anyway. Me too. She laughed, but it sounded sad. We were 22 and stupid and thought we had all the time in the world. And now? Ryan heard himself ask. Now we're 32 and supposedly wiser. What does that change? Ava looked at him, and the weight of everything unsaid pressed down on them both. I don't know. You have a daughter. I just got out of a marriage. We're neighbors, which complicates everything. And we already know what happens when we're not brave enough to be honest with each other. So we're honest this time, Ryan said, even if it's scary. Is it that simple? Probably not. He smiled despite the seriousness of the conversation. But maybe it could be. Before Ava could respond, Ryan's phone alarm went off, the reminder that he had 45 minutes before Lily woke up. I need to get back, he said reluctantly. But Ava, I know, she said. We should talk more, really talk. Coffee sometime? Actual sitting down coffee, not running coffee. I'd like that. They walked back toward Oak Street in silence, but it was different now. The weight was still there. 10 years of history, current complications, the unknown future, but something had shifted. They'd finally said the words out loud. As they reached their respective houses, Ava paused. Ryan, for what it's worth, I'm glad you're my neighbor, even if it's complicated. Me too, Ryan said, and meant it with everything he had. The rest of the week passed in a blur of near misses and careful politeness. They waved in the mornings, exchanged brief pleasantries when they happened to be getting mail at the same time, maintained a friendly distance that felt both safe and suffocating. By Friday, Ryan was ready to either have the conversation they needed to have or accept that they'd fallen back into their old pattern of avoidance. The decision was made for him when Lily came down with a stomach bug Friday afternoon. He picked her up early from school, spent the evening alternating between comfort and cleaning, and fell into bed exhausted at 9:30. At 10:15, his phone buzzed with a text from Ava. Saw your lights on late. Everything okay? Lily's sick. Just got her settled. Should be fine by morning. Need anything? Ginger ale, crackers, mindless company? Ryan smiled despite his exhaustion. I'm okay. But thank you. Okay. But the offer stands if you change your mind. He set his phone down and closed his eyes, trying to sleep. But his mind kept circling back to their conversation by the pond, to the decade they'd lost, to the question of whether this time could be different. At 10:47, unable to sleep, Ryan made a decision that was either brave or stupid. He got out of bed, pulled on a sweatshirt, and walked outside. Ava's porch light was still on. He crossed the lawn, climbed her steps, and knocked softly on the door. A moment later, it opened. Ava stood there in pajamas and a cardigan, looking surprised. Ryan, is Lily? She's asleep. She's fine. He took a breath. I changed my mind. About the mindless company. A slow smile spread across Ava's face. Come in. Her living room was still sparsely furnished, a couch, a coffee table, a lamp in the corner, but it felt like her. Books everywhere, a blanket draped over the couch, classical music playing softly from somewhere. Wine, she offered. Or are you too tired? Wine sounds good. She poured them each a glass and settled on the couch. Ryan sat beside her, close but not touching, acutely aware of every inch between them. So, Ava said, mindless company. Should we discuss the weather, current events, the existential dread of being in our 30s? How about we talk about what happens next, Ryan said. With us. Ava took a sip of wine, considering. Honest answer? I have no idea. This whole situation is terrifying. You're my neighbor. You have a daughter who's already attached to me. We have a history of not being brave enough to be honest. The odds of this working are probably terrible. But? Ryan prompted. But I haven't felt this awake in years, Ava said quietly. Not since before I got married. Maybe not since college. And I'm tired of making safe choices just because I'm scared of the alternative. Ryan set down his wine glass. I'm scared too. Lily's my priority, always. If this goes wrong, if we try and fail, she's the one who loses another person. I can't do that to her lightly. I wouldn't ask you to. Ava met his eyes. So where does that leave us? Taking it slow, Ryan said. Being honest. Seeing if what we felt 10 years ago is still real, or if it's just nostalgia and proximity. And if it's real, then we figure it out together. Ryan reached out, taking her hand, her fingers interlaced with his, and the simple touch felt monumental. One day at a time. Ava squeezed his hand. I can do slow and honest. They sat there on her couch, hands linked, the moment stretching between them. Ryan knew he should go home, should check on Lily, should maintain the boundaries they'd just agreed on. But he didn't want to move, didn't want to break the fragile connection they'd just acknowledged. Tell me something true, Ava said. Something you've never told anyone else. Ryan thought about it. Sometimes I'm terrified that I'm not enough. That Lily will grow up and realize her dad did everything half right instead of fully right because he was too busy managing logistics to actually be present. That's not true, Ava said firmly. She adores you. Anyone can see that. I know. In my rational brain, I know, but the fear is still there. Okay, my turn. Ava took a breath. I stayed in my marriage 2 years longer than I should have because I was afraid of failing. I'd already lost one thing I wanted, you. And I thought if I could just make my marriage work, it would prove I hadn't completely screwed up my 20s. You didn't screw up anything, Ryan said. Neither did you. She smiled sadly. We just made choices. Different choices than we might have made if we'd been braver. So let's be braver now. Deal. They talked until midnight about everything and nothing, about Lily's latest obsession with marine biology, about Ava's adjustment to her new job, about small moments from college they'd both held on to, late-night conversations in the library, study sessions that turned into philosophical debates, the time they'd gotten lost trying to find a concert venue and ended up at an all-night diner instead. When Ryan finally stood to leave, Ava walked him to the door. Thank you, he said, for tonight, for being honest. Thank you for being brave enough to knock. She leaned against the doorframe. Same time tomorrow? The morning run? I'll be here. Ryan walked across the dark lawn to his own house, checking on Lily before falling into bed. Sleep came easier this time, his mind quiet in a way it hadn't been in weeks. For the first time in 10 years, the future felt like possibility instead of obligation, and Ryan was finally ready to see where that possibility might lead. The next morning arrived with rain drumming against the windows, the kind of steady Portland downpour that turned streets into rivers and made staying inside feel like the only reasonable option. Ryan woke to the sound of it, checking his phone to find it was barely past 6. Lily was still asleep, her fever broken sometime in the night, her breathing steady and calm. He made coffee in the quiet kitchen, watching water stream down the glass, and thought about the conversation on Ava's couch. The weight of everything they'd finally said aloud. The promise of taking things slow, of being honest, of trying again after 10 years of wondering what if. His phone buzzed with a text. Rain check on the run? Ryan smiled, typing back. Probably wise. How's your Saturday looking? Lazy. Might actually finish unpacking the last few boxes. You? Sick kid recovery protocol. Movies and soup. Sounds perfect. Let me know if you need anything. He set his phone down and poured a second cup of coffee, feeling something unfamiliar settle in his chest. Not quite hope, not quite peace, something in between. The sense that maybe, finally, he was allowed to want something for himself instead of just managing the mechanics of life. Lily emerged from her bedroom around 8, pale but functional, asking for toast and declaring that she felt mostly better but probably still too sick for chores. Ryan let her set up camp on the couch with blankets and her tablet, queuing up nature documentaries while he made breakfast. By mid-morning, the rain had intensified into a full storm. Wind rattled the windows, and the sky had darkened to charcoal gray. Ryan was doing laundry when the lights flickered once, twice, then went out completely. "Dad?" Lily called from the living room, her voice nervous. "It's okay, kiddo, just a power outage." He navigated to the living room by memory, finding her huddled on the couch. "Happens sometimes in storms. We've got flashlights and candles. We'll be fine." But Lily was 8 and still recovering from being sick, and the sudden darkness in the middle of a storm made her eyes go wide with worry. How long will it be out? I don't know. Could be an hour. Could be longer. Ryan pulled out his phone, using its flashlight to locate the emergency supplies. Tell you what, let's make this an adventure. Indoor camping. He was gathering candles when a knock sounded at the door. Ryan opened it to find Ava standing on his porch, hood pulled up against the rain, looking concerned. Your power out too? She asked. Yeah. Whole street probably. I have a camping stove and a full battery pack, Ava said. Thought I'd check if you two needed anything. Lily appeared behind Ryan, peering around his arm. Miss Ava, we're having an indoor camping adventure. That sounds fun, Ava said warmly. Want some company? I have hot chocolate mix and a deck of cards. Ryan met her eyes over Lily's head, seeing the question there. Is this okay? Am I overstepping? Company sounds great, he said. Come in before you get soaked. Ava returned 15 minutes later with supplies. The battery pack, a camping stove, 2 thermoses of hot water, marshmallows, and playing cards worn soft from use. Ryan had set up candles throughout the living room, creating pools of warm light that pushed back the storm's gloom. This is actually really cozy, Ava said, looking around. Like a proper adventure. They made hot chocolate on the camping stove, Lily providing detailed instructions on the proper marshmallow to chocolate ratio. Then they settled on the floor around the coffee table, playing cards by candlelight while rain pounded the roof. Go fish, Lily declared triumphantly, making Ava groan and draw another card. You're too good at this, Ava complained. Are you secretly a card shark? What's a card shark? Someone who's really, really good at card games, sometimes suspiciously good. Lily grinned, pleased with this assessment. I play with my friend Marcus at recess. He taught me strategy. Well, Marcus is clearly an excellent teacher. Ava discarded a pair of 3s. Your turn, Ryan. They played for over an hour, the simple rhythm of the game filling the space with something light and easy. Ryan watched Lily interact with Ava, the comfortable way she leaned against Ava's shoulder when looking at her cards, how she laughed without self-consciousness, the way she'd already started treating Ava like someone who belonged in their space. It made his chest tight with something between hope and fear. Around noon, Lily's energy started flagging. The combination of recovering from illness and the storm's dim atmosphere pulled her towards sleep. Ryan carried her to bed, tucking her in with her favorite stuffed penguin, waiting until her breathing evened out before returning to the living room. Ava was cleaning up the cards, arranging them back into neat suits. She looked up when he entered. She okay? Just tired. She'll probably sleep for a few hours. Ryan sat on the couch, suddenly aware of how quiet the house was with just the two of them. Thank you for coming over. It helped. I'm glad. Ava joined him on the couch, leaving a careful distance between them. She's wonderful, Ryan. You've done an incredible job raising her. I'm just trying not to screw it up too badly. You're doing more than that. Ava turned to face him, drawing one leg up onto the cushion. Can I ask you something about Claire? Ryan tensed reflexively, then forced himself to relax. Honest, he reminded himself. They'd agreed to be honest. Ask. Do you still love her? The question was direct, unadorned. Ryan appreciated that. No, I don't think I ever loved her the way you're supposed to love someone you marry. We were young, we got pregnant, and we tried to make it work because that's what we thought we were supposed to do. He paused, choosing his words carefully. I cared about her. I wanted it to work for Lily's sake. But love? Real love? No. Ava nodded slowly, processing this. Did she know? That you didn't love her that way? I think so. I think that's part of why she left. She wanted more than I could give her, and I wanted more than she could be. Ryan ran a hand through his hair. The honest truth is, we should never have gotten married. We should have figured out co-parenting without trying to force a relationship that didn't fit either of us. But then you wouldn't have had the stability you needed to raise Lily. Maybe. Or maybe we would have found a different kind of stability. One that didn't involve staying in something broken because it felt safer than admitting failure. He looked at Ava. What about you? What happened with David? Ava was quiet for a long moment, her fingers tracing patterns on the couch cushion. David was safe. That's the best way I can describe it. He was kind, reliable, exactly the kind of person my parents hoped I'd marry. And after I'd already lost one thing I wanted, she glanced at Ryan. I convinced myself that safe was enough, that passion and chemistry were overrated, that real relationships were built on compatibility and shared values. But they weren't enough, Ryan said softly. No, because safe doesn't mean right, and compatibility doesn't mean connection. Ava's voice was steady, but Ryan could hear the pain underneath. We spent 5 years being polite roommates who occasionally had sex. We had the same arguments on loop. He wanted me to be more spontaneous. I wanted him to understand that I couldn't just turn off the parts of myself that needed structure and planning. Neither of us was wrong. We were just wrong for each other. How did it end? Quietly. We were at dinner one night, talking about whether to buy a house, and I realized I couldn't picture a future with him. Not really. I could picture the house, the routine, the appearance of a life, but I couldn't picture being happy. So I told him. And to his credit, he said he'd been feeling the same way. I'm sorry, Ryan said. Even when it's the right decision, it still hurts. It does. Ava met his eyes. But you want to know what hurt more? Realizing I'd spent 5 years settling because I was afraid of taking a risk. Afraid of what it might mean to actually want something instead of just accepting what seemed reasonable. The words hung between them, heavy with implication. Outside, the storm continued its assault, but inside the candlelit living room, everything felt suspended, waiting. What do you want now? Ryan heard himself ask. Ava held his gaze. Honestly, I want to find out if what we felt 10 years ago was real. I want to know if the connection I remember actually existed, or if I've spent a decade romanticizing something that was only ever friendship. She paused. And I want to not be afraid this time, even if it means risking everything. Ryan's heart was doing complicated things in his chest. I want that too. But Ava, Lily has to come first, always. If we try this and it doesn't work, if it gets messy, she's the one who pays the price. I know, Ava interrupted gently. I would never ask you to put me before her. And if we do this, if we really try, it has to be with the understanding that she's part of the equation, not an obstacle, but part of what we're building. You'd really be okay with that? With dating someone who comes with a whole pre-made family? Ryan, I spent an hour this morning playing Go Fish and making hot chocolate, and it was the happiest I've felt since moving here, maybe since before my divorce. Ava smiled, soft and genuine. So yes, I'm okay with it. More than okay. Ryan reached for her hand, their fingers interlacing like they had the night before. But this time felt different, more deliberate, less tentative. So we're doing this, he said. For real. For real, Ava confirmed. Slow and honest. Slow and honest, Ryan repeated. Then, because he'd spent 10 years not being brave enough, he leaned forward and kissed her. It was gentle, questioning, nothing like the passionate reunion movie scenes made it seem. It was careful and real and tasted like hot chocolate. And when Ava kissed him back, her hand coming up to cup his face, Ryan felt something in his chest unlock. A part of himself he'd kept carefully contained since Claire left, since Lily became his whole world, since he'd convinced himself that wanting something for himself was selfish. When they pulled apart, Ava was smiling. That was long overdue, Ryan finished. I was going to say nice, but that works too. They sat close together on the couch, hands linked, listening to the storm. The power was still out, the world still dark, but everything felt brighter somehow, like someone had turned up the contrast on his life. So what happens now? Ava asked. Do we tell Lily? Do we keep it quiet for a while? I think, Ryan considered carefully. I think we take it as it comes. We don't hide it, but we also don't make a big announcement. We just spend time together. Let her adjust to you being around more. See how it feels. That sounds reasonable. Reasonable, Ryan repeated with a slight smile. Not the most romantic word. I've learned that reasonable is underrated, Ava said. Reasonable means we're thinking this through. Reasonable means we're being adults about it. Fair point. They spent the afternoon talking, filling in the gaps of 10 years. Ava told him about Seattle, about the nonprofit work she'd been doing, about her small apartment overlooking Puget Sound and how she'd spent weekends hiking alone because David preferred staying home. Ryan told her about the early days of single parenthood, about learning to braid hair from YouTube videos, about the night Lily had asked why her mom didn't love her enough to stay, and how he'd held her while she cried and had no good answers to give. The power came back on around 3, lights flickering to life, the house humming back into its usual rhythm. Lily woke up shortly after, wandering into the living room looking rumpled and sleepy. "Is the storm over?" she asked. "Just about," Ryan said. "How are you feeling?" "Better, hungry." "I can make soup," Ava offered. "If that's okay?" Lily brightened. "The good kind with noodles?" "The good kind with noodles," Ava confirmed. They moved into the kitchen, and Ryan watched as Ava navigated his space with growing familiarity. She knew where he kept the pots now, had learned which burner heated evenly and which one ran hot. Small domesticities that felt significant. While the soup heated, Lily set the table with careful precision, placing napkins at exact right angles. She chattered about her favorite documentaries, about the octopus episode she'd watched that morning, about how octopuses were basically aliens because they had 3 hearts and blue blood. 3 hearts, Ava repeated, stirring the soup. That seems excessive. It's for efficiency, Lily explained seriously. 2 hearts pump blood to the gills, and 1 pumps it to the rest of the body. Well, that's actually fascinating. Miss Ava? Lily asked, her tone shifting to something more careful. Are you going to stay for dinner? Ryan caught Ava's glance, saw the question there. He gave a small nod. I'd love to, Ava said. If that's okay with your dad? It's definitely okay, Ryan confirmed. They ate soup at the kitchen table while rain pattered softly against the windows, the storm finally winding down. Lily dominated the conversation with more octopus facts, then pivoted to explaining the complex social hierarchy of third-grade recess. Ava listened with genuine interest, asking questions, laughing at the right moments. Ryan felt something settle in his chest. Not quite contentment. It was too new, too fragile for that. But something close. The feeling of pieces fitting together in ways he hadn't known they could. After dinner, Lily wanted to show Ava her room, specifically her collection of rocks she'd gathered from various beaches and hiking trails. Ryan followed them upstairs, leaning against the doorframe while Lily pulled out shoeboxes full of stones, each one with a story. This one is from Cannon Beach, Lily said, holding up a smooth black stone. And this one Dad helped me find at the river. It has sparkles. That's mica, Ava said, examining it. It's a mineral that forms in layers. That's what makes it sparkly. You know a lot about rocks. I know a little about a lot of things, Ava said with a smile. Rocks just happen to be one of them. Eventually, Ryan announced bedtime, which was met with the expected protests. But Lily was still recovering, and her energy had flagged. She submitted to the bedtime routine with minimal resistance. Teeth brushed, pajamas on, stuffed penguin retrieved from its place of honor on the pillow. Will you read to me? She asked Ryan, already climbing into bed. Of course. What are we reading? The one about the girl and the dragon. Ryan settled into the chair beside her bed, opening the well-worn paperback they'd been working through. But before he could start, Lily spoke again. Can Miss Ava stay and listen? Ryan looked at Ava, who stood uncertainly in the doorway. If she wants to. I'd love to, Ava said, moving into the room and sitting on the edge of the bed. Ryan read 2 chapters, voices and all, while Lily's eyes grew heavy. By the end of the 2nd chapter, she was asleep, breathing deep and even. Ryan closed the book quietly, and he and Ava tiptoed out, leaving the door cracked and the nightlight glowing. Downstairs, the house felt different, warmer somehow, less like a space he was just managing and more like a home. Thank you, Ryan said. For today. For all of it. Thank you for letting me in, Ava replied. I know it's not easy with Lily. I know you have to be careful. You make it easy, Ryan said honestly. That's what scares me. Ava stepped closer, reaching for his hand. Talk to me. What scares you? That this will work. That Lily will get attached, that I'll get attached, that we'll build something real, and then… He stopped, struggling with the words. And then it will fall apart, Ava finished softly. And everyone gets hurt. Yes. Ryan, I can't promise that won't happen. I can't promise we're going to work out perfectly and live happily ever after. She squeezed his hand. But I can promise that I'm here because I want to be. Not because it's convenient, not because it's safe, but because for the first time in years, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. He pulled her closer, wrapping his arms around her, feeling her melt into the embrace. They stood like that for a long moment, just holding each other, the weight of the day and the decade before it settling around them. "I'm glad you moved next door," Ryan murmured into her hair. "Me too." When Ava finally left, walking across the wet lawn to her own house, Ryan stood at the window and watched her go. The storm had passed, leaving everything clean and fresh. The streetlights reflected in puddles, and somewhere in the distance he could hear the sound of water rushing through storm drains. He thought about the past 3 years, about how he'd convinced himself that his life was complete with just him and Lily, about how he'd built walls around the parts of himself that wanted more because wanting felt dangerous. And now Ava was here, and the walls were coming down, and it was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. Ryan pulled out his phone and sent a text. "Same time tomorrow? For the run?" The response came within seconds. Wouldn't miss it. Sunday morning arrived clear and bright, the kind of post-storm freshness that made Portland feel like the most beautiful city in the world. Ryan was on his porch stretching when Ava emerged, already in running gear. "Morning," she called. "Morning." They fell into their usual rhythm, but everything felt different now. The careful distance they'd been maintaining had collapsed. Their shoulders brushed as they ran. When they slowed to a walk in the park, Ava took his hand without hesitation. "So," she said as they rounded the pond, "do we have a plan for how this works?" "I thought we were taking it slow and being honest." "We are. But slow can mean a lot of things. Are we dating? Are we seeing each other? We're together," Ryan said, the words feeling both strange and right in his mouth. "We're taking it slow, but we're together, if that's what you want." "It is," Ava said. "Definitely." They ran the rest of the loop in comfortable silence, hands linked, finding their synchronized rhythm. When they reached Oak Street, instead of parting ways at the property line, Ryan walked Ava to her door. "Do you want to come in?" she asked. "I could make breakfast." "I need to get back to Lily, but maybe later. We usually do something on Sunday afternoons, park, museum, whatever she's interested in. You could come with us." "I'd like that." Ryan leaned in, kissing her softly. It was easier this time, more natural, like something they'd been doing for years instead of barely 24 hours. "I'll text you," he said, "once Lily's up and we have a plan. I'll be ready." The afternoon found them at OMSY, Portland Science Museum, where Lily dragged them through exhibits with relentless enthusiasm. She spent 20 minutes in the earthquake simulator, 15 more examining marine life in the aquarium, and another 10 asking increasingly complex questions about submarine physics that stumped both adults. "I don't know," Ryan admitted finally, "but we can look it up when we get home." "Or," Lily said with the tone of someone making a generous offer, "we could ask the person at the desk. That's literally their job." Ava laughed. "She's not wrong." They ended up at the museum cafe, sharing a plate of fries while Lily sketched submarines in her notebook. Ryan watched her draw, feeling Ava's presence beside him like a physical warmth. Their shoulders touched. Under the table, her foot rested against his. "This is nice," Ava said quietly. "Yeah," Ryan agreed. "It really is." On the drive home, Lily fell asleep in the back seat, worn out from the afternoon's explorations. Ryan glanced at her in the rear-view mirror, then over at Ava in the passenger seat. "Thank you for coming," he said. "Thank you for including me." Ava looked back at Lily. "She's special, Ryan. Really special. I know. Sometimes I can't believe I get to be her dad. She's lucky to have you." They pulled into Oak Street as the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Ryan carried Lily inside, getting her settled on the couch with a blanket while she dozed. When he returned to the porch, Ava was waiting. "So," she said, "how did I do? First official family outing? You did great. Better than great." Ryan stepped closer, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Lily asked me on the way home if you were my girlfriend." "What did you tell her?" "I told her that we're spending time together, getting to know each other again. that we care about each other. He paused. I didn't use the word girlfriend. Wasn't sure if that was too much too soon. For her or for you? Both, maybe. Ava was quiet for a moment, her hands resting on his shoulders. Can I tell you something about this afternoon? Of course. I kept looking at you two, the way you interact, the way she lights up when she's excited about something and looks to you to share it. And I thought, this is what I want, not someday, not in some abstract future. This. A family. Connection. People who actually see each other. She laughed softly. I'm probably moving too fast. We've been together for, what, a day? And I'm already… Ryan kissed her, cutting off the spiral of self-doubt. When they pulled apart, he rested his forehead against hers. You're not moving too fast, he said. You're just being honest. That's what we agreed on. Honest is terrifying. Yeah, Ryan agreed, but it's better than the alternative. They stood on the porch until the last light faded from the sky, holding each other, talking quietly about nothing and everything. When Ava finally went home, Ryan felt the absence like a physical thing, but it wasn't painful. It was just there, a reminder that he had something worth missing. Mots. The week that followed established a new normal. Morning runs together 3 times a week. Ava joining them for dinner on Tuesday and Thursday. Small moments woven through the routine, a text in the middle of the workday, a wave from across their yards, quick conversations while collecting mail. It felt natural, organic, like they were growing into something real without forcing it. On Friday night, Ryan had just put Lily to bed when his phone rang. Claire's name appeared on the screen, and his stomach tightened reflexively. Hey, he answered, walking into the kitchen for privacy. Ryan, hi. Did you get my message about next weekend? I did. Listen, Claire, I need more notice than this. Lily has plans with friends, and I'm only in town for a few days, Claire interrupted. I'd really like to see her. It's been months. And whose fault is that? The words came out sharper than he'd intended. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. That's not fair, Claire said finally. You know I'm doing my best. Your best would be more than 3 visits a year with minimal notice, Ryan said, trying to keep his voice level. She's your daughter, Claire. She needs consistency, not just occasional appearances when it's convenient for you. I'm trying, Ryan. I know I'm not perfect, but I'm trying. Are you? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you moved to California to start over and left your daughter behind. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. Look, if you want to see Lily next weekend, fine. But you need to commit to it. No canceling last minute, no pushing back the time because something else came up. She deserves better than that. I won't cancel, Claire said quietly. I promise. Okay. Saturday afternoon. You can take her for a few hours, but she needs to be home by 6 for dinner. Thank you. They worked out the logistics, and Ryan hung up feeling exhausted. He loved his daughter more than anything, but dealing with Claire always left him emotionally drained. The constant negotiation, the need to protect Lily from disappointment, the reminder that he was essentially parenting alone. A knock at the door pulled him from his thoughts. Ava stood on his porch, holding 2 bottles of beer. Saw your light on, she said. Thought you might need one of these. You're a mind reader. Ryan accepted the beer and stepped aside to let her in. They settled on the couch, and he filled her in on the phone call. How are you feeling about it? Ava asked when he finished. Frustrated, protective, worried about how Lily's going to react. Ryan took a long drink. She always gets quiet after seeing Claire. It takes a few days for her to come back to herself. That must be hard to watch. It's the worst part of parenting, knowing someone you love is hurting and not being able to fix it. He looked at Ava. Sorry, I don't mean to dump this on you. Don't apologize. This is part of your life, part of what I'm signing up for. She shifted closer, resting her head on his shoulder. Can I help at all with next weekend? Ryan thought about it. Maybe. If you're around after Claire drops Lily off, your presence might help. You're good at distracting her, getting her out of her own head. I can do that. They sat in comfortable silence, drinking their beers, the quiet of the house settling around them. Ryan felt some of the tension in his shoulders ease. Can I ask you something? Ava said after a while. Always. Do you ever regret it? The way your life turned out? Single parent, tied to one place, limited freedom? Ryan considered the question carefully. Sometimes I wonder what my life would have looked like if things had gone differently. If Claire and I hadn't gotten pregnant, if I'd taken that job offer in San Francisco, if I'd... He stopped. If I'd been brave enough to tell you how I felt 10 years ago. Ava lifted her head to look at him. And? And then I look at Lily, and I can't regret any of it. Because all those choices, even the hard ones, led me to her. And she's the best thing that's ever happened to me. He took Ava's hand. But that doesn't mean I don't want more. It just means I've learned to be careful about what more looks like. Is this, Ava gestured between them, part of more? Yeah, Ryan said. Definitely. She kissed him then, slow and deep, and for a while they forgot about complicated ex-wives and uncertain futures. They were just two people who'd found their way back to each other, taking it one moment at a time. When Ava left an hour later, Ryan locked up and checked on Lily one more time. She was sprawled across her bed in the way only children could manage, covers kicked off, penguin clutched to her chest. He adjusted the blanket gently, brushed hair from her face, and felt the familiar surge of fierce protectiveness. Whatever happened with Claire, whatever complicated things the future held, he would make sure Lily was okay. That was the promise he'd made the day she was born, and it was one he intended to keep. But for the first time in 3 years, he was allowing himself to believe that protecting Lily didn't mean closing himself off from everything else. That maybe, just maybe, he could have more than just the mechanics of survival. Maybe he could have something that felt like living. Saturday arrived with the weight of inevitability. Ryan woke earlier than usual, his mind already racing through the day's logistics. Claire would pick up Lily at 2, have her until 6, and then he'd deal with whatever emotional aftermath followed. It was a pattern he knew too well, one that never got easier, no matter how many times they repeated it. He made pancakes for breakfast, Lily's favorite, trying to keep the morning light and normal. But she was quieter than usual, pushing food around her plate more than eating it. "You okay, kiddo?" Ryan asked, settling into the chair across from her. "Is Mom really coming today?" The question hit him square in the chest. "Yes, she'll be here at 2. What if she cancels again?" Ryan reached across the table, covering her small hand with his. "She promised she wouldn't, and if something comes up, we'll deal with it together. But I think she's really going to be here this time." Lily nodded, not quite convinced, and returned her attention to her pancakes. Ryan wished he could take the anxiety away, could promise her that Claire would never disappoint her again. But he'd learned the hard way that some promises weren't his to make. Around noon, Ava texted, "How's the morning going?" Tense. Lily's nervous? Want company? Or would that make it worse? Ryan thought about it. Having Ava around might actually help distract Lily. Give her something else to focus on besides watching the clock tick toward 2. "Come over. Bring a distraction if you have one." 20 minutes later, Ava appeared with a box of art supplies and an ambitious plan to make friendship bracelets. Lily's face brightened immediately when she saw the colorful threads and beads spread across the kitchen table. "Miss Ava, are we making bracelets?" "We are. And I'm going to teach you a pattern my aunt taught me when I was about your age." Ava settled into a chair, organizing the materials with practiced efficiency. "It's called a chevron pattern. Think you can handle it?" "Definitely." For the next hour, they wove threads together, Lily's anxiety gradually easing as she focused on the intricate pattern. Ryan watched from the kitchen counter where he was supposedly answering work emails, but mostly he was just watching the two of them. The way Ava's patience never faltered when Lily made mistakes, how she celebrated each small success, the comfortable silence that had developed between them, punctuated by Lily's occasional questions and Ava's gentle answers. At 1:45, Lily went upstairs to change clothes, wanting to look nice for her mom. Ava started cleaning up the art supplies, and Ryan moved to help her. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for this. It helped." "She's a good kid, smart, creative, sensitive." Ava paused, choosing her words carefully. "But she carries a lot of worry for someone so young." "I know. I see it every time Claire's involved. She wants so badly to believe her mom will show up, will stay, will choose her. And every time it doesn't work out that way, a little more of that hope gets chipped away." "That's heartbreaking." "Yeah," Ryan agreed. "It really is." Lily came back downstairs wearing her favorite purple dress and the bracelet she'd just made. She looked beautiful and vulnerable and far too young to be navigating these complicated emotional waters. At exactly 2 o'clock, a car pulled into the driveway. Claire emerged wearing designer sunglasses and a carefully casual outfit that probably cost more than Ryan's monthly grocery budget. She'd always been beautiful, and time had been kind to her. But looking at her now, Ryan felt nothing except a vague sense of disconnection, like seeing a character from a movie he'd watched years ago. Lily ran to the door, then stopped, suddenly uncertain. Ryan put a hand on her shoulder. "Go ahead, kiddo. Have fun. I'll see you at 6. She hugged him quickly, fiercely, then walked out to meet her mother. Ryan watched from the doorway as Claire swept Lily into an enthusiastic embrace, all bright smiles and exaggerated excitement. Then Claire's eyes landed on Ava, who was standing slightly behind Ryan in the hallway. Something flickered across Claire's face. Surprise, maybe, or curiosity. She said something to Lily that Ryan couldn't hear, then looked back at him with an expression that clearly said, "We'll talk about this later." The car pulled away, and Ryan let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. "You okay?" Ava asked, coming to stand beside him. "I will be. Just hate this part. The waiting, the worrying, not being able to control what happens. Want to go for a walk? Might help take your mind off it." They ended up at Riverside Park, following the path they ran most mornings. But walking changed the experience entirely. They could talk more easily, stop to watch ducks on the pond, sit on a bench overlooking the water. "Can I ask you something?" Ava said as they settled onto one of the benches. "And you can tell me if it's too personal." "After everything we've already talked about, I think personal is relative at this point." She smiled. "Fair. I was just wondering, when did you know that Claire wasn't the person you were supposed to be with?" Ryan watched the ducks glide across the pond's surface, considering the question. "Honestly, I think I always knew, but knowing and admitting are different things. We were 23 when Lily was born. I was terrified and trying to do the right thing, and Claire was equally terrified and trying to convince herself she wanted to be a mother." He paused. "The moment I really knew, couldn't deny it anymore, was about 6 months after Lily was born. Claire was having a rough day, the baby wouldn't stop crying, and she just looked at me and said, 'I don't think I'm built for this.' Not in a postpartum depression way, though that was part of it, but in a fundamental truth way, like she'd finally admitted something she'd been hiding from herself." "What did you say?" "I told her it was okay, that we'd figure it out together, but what I was really thinking was that I was built for it. That even though I was scared and had no idea what I was doing, being Lily's dad felt right in a way nothing else ever had." Ryan looked at Ava. "Does that make sense?" "Perfect sense." She took his hand, threading her fingers through his. "Some people are wired for certain things. It doesn't make them better or worse, just different." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the afternoon light play across the water. Ryan felt the tension in his shoulders gradually ease. Having Ava here, being able to talk about the complicated parts of his life without judgment, felt like something he hadn't known he needed. "What about you?" he asked. "When did you know with David?" Ava was quiet for a long moment. There wasn't one specific moment. It was more like a series of small realizations that accumulated over time. Like, we'd be at dinner with friends and everyone would be telling stories, laughing, connecting. And David and I would be sitting there next to each other but completely separate. We weren't even pretending to be a unit anymore. That sounds lonely. It was. The loneliest I've ever been, actually, because I wasn't alone. I was married, surrounded by people who thought we had it all figured out. But inside, I felt invisible. She squeezed his hand. "Being here, with you, is the opposite of that. I feel seen. Does that sound ridiculous?" "Not even a little bit." Ryan leaned in and kissed her, soft and unhurried. When they pulled apart, Ava was smiling. "You know what's strange?" she said. "I spent so long thinking about what could have been if we'd gotten together in college, building it up in my head as this perfect missed opportunity. But now I wonder if we needed all those years, all those experiences, to become people who could actually do this right." "You think we're doing it right?" "I think we're trying, and that's more than we did before." They walked back to Oak Street as the afternoon stretched toward evening. Ryan checked his phone obsessively, watching the time tick toward 6. At 5:30, Claire texted, "Running a bit late. We'll have her back by 6:30. Hope that's okay. Ryan's jaw tightened. Of course she was running late. She was always running late, always pushing boundaries, always treating his time like it was negotiable. 6 o'clock was the agreement, he texted back. Lily has dinner plans. It's just 30 minutes, Ryan. Don't be difficult. He showed the exchange to Ava, who winced. Want me to make myself scarce? If this is going to turn into a confrontation. No, stay, please. He took a breath, trying to calm the frustration building in his chest. I'm so tired of this. The constant negotiation, the way she treats every boundary like a suggestion. You should tell her that. I have. Multiple times. It doesn't change anything. At 6:15, Claire's car pulled into the driveway. Lily climbed out, looking tired but okay, clutching a shopping bag that presumably held whatever Claire had bought to compensate for her sporadic presence. Ryan met them on the front lawn, very aware of Ava watching from his porch. Sorry we're late, Claire said, not sounding particularly sorry. We lost track of time at the mall. The agreement was 6 o'clock, Ryan said evenly. Not 6:30, not 6:15. 6. Claire's expression hardened. It's 15 minutes, Ryan. You're being ridiculous. I'm being clear about boundaries. There's a difference. Right, because you're always so perfect. She glanced toward the porch, where Ava was making a visible effort to look anywhere else. Is that her? Your new girlfriend? Ryan felt his temper spike. That's none of your business. It is if she's around my daughter. Our daughter. Who you see maybe 3 times a year. You don't get to show up sporadically and start making demands about who's in her life. I'm her mother. Then act like it. The words came out sharper than he intended, but Ryan was done being diplomatic. Show up when you say you will. Call her more than once a month. Stop treating her like an obligation you have to schedule around your real life. Claire's face flushed. That's not fair. You're right. What's not fair is Lily spending every visit wondering if this is the last time she'll see you for months. What's not fair is me picking up the pieces every time you disappoint her. Ryan forced himself to take a breath, to lower his voice. I'm not trying to keep you from her, but if you want to be part of her life, you need to be consistent. She deserves that. For a moment, Claire looked like she might argue. Then something in her expression shifted, and she just looked tired. You're right. I know you're right. I'm just... She stopped. I'm trying, Ryan. I know it doesn't look like enough, but I'm trying. Try harder, Ryan said, but his tone was gentler now. She needs you. Not the version of you that shows up with shopping bags and apologies. The real you, consistently. Claire nodded, tears shining in her eyes. Then she turned to Lily, who'd been standing silently through the entire exchange. I love you, sweetheart. I'll call you this week, okay? Okay, Lily said quietly. Claire hugged her daughter, then walked back to her car without another word. Ryan watched her drive away, then looked down at Lily. You okay? Is she really going to call this week? The question broke his heart. I don't know, kiddo. I hope so. They walked back to the house together. Ava had gone inside, giving them privacy, but she appeared in the kitchen as they entered. Hey, Lily, she said with careful cheerfulness. I was thinking maybe we could finish those bracelets we started, and I brought stuff for tacos if you're hungry. Lily looked at her dad, asking silent permission. Ryan nodded. Can we make the kind with the crunchy shells? Lily asked. Absolutely. Crunchy shells are the best kind. While Ava and Lily worked in the kitchen, Ryan stepped onto the back porch to call his brother. Marcus answered on the 3rd ring. Hey man, what's up? Claire visit, Ryan said shortly. Need to vent for 5 minutes. Say no more. Vent away. Ryan filled him in on the afternoon's events, the argument, the perpetual frustration of trying to co-parent with someone who couldn't commit to basic consistency. You did the right thing, Marcus said when Ryan finished, setting boundaries, calling her out. That's what Lily needs from you. I know, it just feels like I'm fighting the same battle over and over with no progress. Maybe. Or maybe eventually something will stick. Either way, you're doing right by your kid. That's what matters. They talked for a few more minutes before Ryan hung up, feeling marginally better. He returned inside to find Lily and Ava setting the table, working together with easy coordination. Lily was chattering about her afternoon with Claire, the ice cream they'd gotten, the bookstore they'd visited. And Mom said she's going to try to come back in a few weeks, Lily said, arranging napkins with careful precision. Do you think she will? I don't know, Ryan said honestly, but I hope so. Over tacos, the conversation shifted to lighter topics. Ava told stories about her own childhood, growing up with two sisters who'd constantly borrowed her clothes without asking. Lily laughed at the image of young Ava hiding her favorite sweater in increasingly creative places. Did it work? Lily asked. Never. They always found it. I eventually learned to just accept that nothing in my closet was truly mine. Ava smiled. But we're close now. Distance and time have a way of smoothing out old conflicts. After dinner, Lily retreated to her room to read, and Ryan helped Ava clean up the kitchen. They worked in comfortable silence, falling into an easy rhythm. Thank you, Ryan said as Ava dried the last plate, for being here today, for helping with Lily, for everything. You don't have to keep thanking me. I want to be here. I know, but he struggled to find the right words. This isn't easy. Dating someone with a kid, dealing with ex-wife drama, navigating all the complications. You could walk away and nobody would blame you. Ava set down the dish towel and turned to face him fully. Ryan, look at me. She waited until his eyes met hers. I'm not walking away. Yes, this is complicated. Yes, there are challenges. But you know what? My marriage was simple and safe and completely wrong. This, she gestured around them. This feels right. Messy and complicated and right. He pulled her close, resting his forehead against hers. I'm falling in love with you, just so you know. Ava's breath caught. That's not very taking it slow of you. I know, but we agreed on honest. We did. She kissed him softly. And for the record, I'm falling in love with you too. They stood in the kitchen holding each other, and for a moment everything else fell away. The complications, the uncertainties, the painful afternoon with Claire, all of it faded into background noise. Later, after Ava had gone home and Lily was asleep, Ryan sat on his back porch with a beer and let himself feel everything he'd been holding back all day. The frustration with Claire, the fear that he wasn't enough to make up for her absence, the cautious hope that maybe, just maybe, he was allowed to have something good for himself. His phone buzzed with a text from Ava. You okay over there? Getting there. Today was a lot. Want to talk about it? Tomorrow maybe. Tonight I just want to sit with it. Okay. But I'm here if you need me. Always. Ryan smiled at the screen, feeling some of the day's weight lift. I know. Thank you. He finished his beer, watching stars appear in the darkening sky, thinking about how much his life had changed in just a few weeks. How Ava had walked back into his world and somehow made everything simultaneously more complicated and more complete. The sound of his back door opening made him turn. Lily stood there in her pajamas, clutching her stuffed penguin. Can't sleep? Ryan asked. She shook her head and climbed into his lap, even though she was getting too big for it. Ryan wrapped his arms around her, holding her close. Was Mom mad at you? She asked quietly. When you were talking outside? No, sweetheart. We were just discussing expectations, making sure we're on the same page about visits. She's not going to call this week, is she? Ryan wanted to lie, to protect her, to promise that Claire would follow through this time. But he'd learned that false promises only made the disappointment worse. I don't know, he said honestly. She might. But if she doesn't, it's not because of anything you did. It's because your mom has a hard time with consistency. That's a grown-up problem, not a kid problem. Lily was quiet for a moment, processing. Then, do you like Miss Ava? The abrupt subject change caught Ryan off guard. Yes, I like her very much. Does that bother you? No, she's nice, and she's good at making bracelets. Lily paused. Is she your girlfriend? Ryan chose his words carefully. We're spending time together, getting to know each other better. She's important to me. How do you feel about that? I like it. She makes you smile more. Lily looked up at him with those two wise eyes. And she makes good tacos. Ryan laughed despite himself. Those are both excellent points. They sat together under the stars, father and daughter, finding comfort in each other's presence. Eventually, Lily's breathing evened out and Ryan carried her back to bed, tucking her in with the same gentle care he'd practiced since she was born. Back in his own room, Ryan pulled out his phone and sent one more text to Ava. Lily says you make good tacos and I smile more when you're around. High praise from an 8-year-old. I'll take it. She also asked if you're my girlfriend. What did you tell her? That you're important to me and we're spending time together. Was that okay? Perfect. And Ryan? She's important to me too. Both of you are. Ryan fell asleep with his phone in his hand, feeling something he hadn't felt in years. Not just hope, but certainty. The bone-deep knowledge that he was exactly where he was supposed to be, moving towards something real and lasting. The next morning arrived gray and drizzly, typical Portland autumn weather. Ryan went through his usual routine, alarm at 5:47, running gear on, out the door by 6. Ava was waiting on her porch, already stretching. Morning, she called. Morning, ready to get wet? Born ready. They ran through light rain, their conversation easy and unhurried. Ava talked about a project at work, something about a fundraising campaign that wasn't landing the way they'd hoped. Ryan offered suggestions, drawing on his years of project management experience. You're good at this, Ava said as they rounded into the park. The strategy part, seeing problems from different angles. It's what I do for a living, though most of my projects involve software implementation, not nonprofit fundraising. Still, you have good instincts. She paused at their usual spot by the pond, catching her breath. Can I ask you something? Always. Are you happy? With your job, I mean. Is it what you want to be doing? The question surprised him. I haven't really thought about it in those terms. It pays well, has good benefits, flexible hours. It lets me be the kind of father I want to be. But is it fulfilling? Ryan considered this, watching rain create patterns on the pond's surface. Honestly, no. It's fine. It's stable. But I don't wake up excited about it. It's just what I do to fund the parts of my life that actually matter. What would you do if you could do anything? I used to think about teaching, high school maybe, history or civics, something where I could actually make a difference instead of just managing timelines and budgets. He laughed. But teachers don't make enough to support a kid on a single income, so that dream went in a box labeled maybe someday. Someday might be closer than you think, Ava said softly. What do you mean? I mean you're not alone anymore. Not really. You have someone who wants to build something with you, who might be able to help share the load. She took his hand. I'm not saying quit your job tomorrow, but maybe don't write off your dreams completely. The words settled over Ryan like a warm blanket. For 3 years, he'd made every decision through the lens of what was safest, most stable, most likely to provide for Lily. The idea that he could want more, could pursue something that fed his soul instead of just his bank account, it felt revolutionary and terrifying all at once. I'll think about it, he said. But let's get through the next few months first. Make sure this, he gestured between them, is as real as it feels right now. Fair enough, but Ryan, it is real. I'm not going anywhere. They ran the rest of the loop in companionable silence, then parted ways at their respective houses. Ryan showered and made breakfast, getting Lily ready for her Sunday morning soccer game. But his mind kept circling back to Ava's question. Was he happy? The answer was complicated. He was content, satisfied with the life he'd built for Lily, proud of how they'd survived Claire's departure and created something stable and good. But happy? Actually fulfilled and excited about his days? Not really. Not until Ava had moved next door and started asking questions that made him reconsider everything. At the soccer field, Ryan stood on the sidelines with the other parents, cheering as Lily's team dominated their opponents. She'd become a solid midfielder over the past season, scrappy and determined. After the game, flushed with victory, she ran over to him grinning. Did you see my assist? In the second half? I saw it. That was beautiful teamwork. Ryan handed her a water bottle. You played great. Can we get ice cream to celebrate? It's barely 10 in the morning. So, winners eat ice cream whenever they want, Ryan laughed. That's definitely not how it works, but sure. Ice cream it is. They were walking toward the car when Maya's mom called out to them. Ryan, Lily, got a minute? Rebecca Chen approached with Maya in tow, both wearing matching team jerseys. I was wondering if Lily would want to come over next Saturday for a sleepover. Maya's been asking all week. Lily's eyes went wide with excitement. Please, Dad, please? Ryan mentally checked his calendar. Next Saturday was clear. No Claire visits scheduled. Nothing urgent at work. Sure, that sounds fun. What time should I drop her off? How about 4? We'll do dinner, movies, the whole sleepover experience. Rebecca smiled. And you'll have a whole evening to yourself. Must be a rare luxury. It really is. Thank you. As they drove to the ice cream shop, Lily chattering excitedly about sleepover plans, Ryan thought about what he'd do with an unexpected free evening. For the first time in years, he had someone he wanted to spend it with. Someone who made him think about more than just responsibilities and schedules. He texted Ava while Lily was ordering her ice cream. Next Saturday night, you, me, actual date. No kid, no interruptions. You in? The response came quickly. Absolutely. What did you have in mind? Dinner somewhere nice? Maybe that Italian place downtown. Then we see where the night goes. I like the sound of that. That night, after Lily was asleep, Ryan called Ava instead of texting. She answered on the first ring. Hey, she said, and he could hear the smile in her voice. Hey yourself. Too late to call? Never. I was just reading. What's up? Nothing specific, just wanted to hear your voice. Ryan settled into his usual spot on the back porch. Today was good. Lily's team won their game, we got celebratory ice cream, and I secured a child-free Saturday night. I heard about that. I've been thinking about it all evening. Yeah, what have you been thinking? That I want it to be perfect, that I'm nervous and excited and maybe overthinking it. She paused. It's been a long time since I've been on an actual date with someone I care about this much. Same here, we can be nervous together. They talked for over an hour about everything and nothing. About Ava's childhood in a small Oregon town, about Ryan's complicated relationship with his own parents, about dreams they'd had when they were 22, and how different reality had turned out. Do you ever regret it? Ava asked. The path your life took? Used to. After Claire left, I spent months replaying every decision, wondering where I'd gone wrong. But then I realized I wasn't wrong. I just made different choices than I might have if circumstances had been different. And now? Now I'm grateful. For Lily, obviously, but also for everything I've learned. About resilience, about what actually matters, about the difference between what looks good on paper and what feeds your soul. He paused. And I'm grateful that you moved next door, that we got this second chance. Me too, Ava said softly. More than you know. When they finally hung up, Ryan sat in the darkness for a while longer, letting the conversation settle over him. Somewhere between Claire's visit and Lily's soccer game and planning a real date with Ava, he'd crossed an invisible threshold. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was building something new, something that felt like the beginning of actually living instead of just managing. And for the first time in years, the future felt like possibility instead of just more of the same. The week leading up to Saturday moved with agonizing slowness. Ryan found himself watching the clock at work, counting down hours until he could go home, see Ava across the lawn, steal a few moments of conversation before the evening routine pulled him back into single-parent mode. They still ran together most mornings, their synchronized breathing and footfalls creating a rhythm that felt as natural as breathing. But now there was an undercurrent of anticipation, a shared awareness that something was shifting between them. On Wednesday evening, Ava came over for dinner. It had become part of their routine, these midweek meals where she'd help cook while Lily did homework at the kitchen table, the three of them orbiting each other with increasing ease. Tonight was pasta night, and Ava had brought fresh basil from the farmer's market. You're very good at that, Ryan observed, watching her chop the basil with precise, even cuts. My nonna was Italian. She taught me young that if you're going to cook, you do it right. Ava swept the basil into the sauce, stirring with practiced efficiency. She used to say that cooking was an act of love. You put care into it, and people can taste the difference. Your grandmother sounds like she was wonderful. She was, stubborn, opinionated, impossible to argue with, but she loved fiercely. Ava tasted the sauce, adjusting the seasoning. She would have liked you, I think. Yeah? You have the same quiet competence, the same way of making people feel safe without making a big production of it. Before Ryan could respond, Lily appeared in the kitchen doorway, her math homework clutched in one hand. Dad, I don't understand question 7. It's asking about fractions, but in a weird way. Ryan moved to help her, but Ava spoke first. Can I take a look? I promise not to just give you the answer. Lily hesitated, then handed over the worksheet. Ava studied it for a moment, then settled into the chair beside her. Okay, so the trick here is that they're asking you to think about fractions as parts of a whole. Let's say you have a pizza. Ryan watched them work through the problem together, Ava's patience never wavering as Lily struggled with the concept. Finally, understanding dawned on his daughter's face. Oh, so it's like if I eat 3 slices out of 8, that's 3/8 of the pizza. Exactly. See? You got it. Thanks, Miss Ava. Lily returned to her homework with renewed confidence, leaving the adults to finish dinner. Later, after they'd eaten and cleaned up, after Lily had gone to bed and the house had settled into its nighttime quiet, Ryan and Ava sat on the back porch with glasses of wine. The October air had a bite to it now, promising winter wasn't far off. She's getting attached to you, Ryan said, breaking the comfortable silence. Lily, I mean. I know. Ava pulled her sweater tighter against the chill. Does that worry you? Sometimes. If this doesn't work out, if we try and fail, she's the one who loses someone else important. He turned to look at Ava. But mostly I'm just grateful that she has you, that we both do. I'm not going anywhere, Ryan. I know we keep saying we're taking it slow, but I need you to understand something. She set down her wine glass, facing him fully. I've already decided. This is what I want. You, Lily, this life we're building together. So if you're still testing me, still waiting for me to realize it's too complicated and leave, you can stop. I'm all in. The words hit Ryan with unexpected force. He'd spent so long protecting himself, protecting Lily, keeping his guard up against the possibility of more loss. But Ava wasn't offering him caution or hedged bets. She was offering certainty. I'm all in too, he said, and meant it with everything he had. She kissed him then, deep and urgent, and for a long moment the future contracted to just this. The taste of wine on her lips, the warmth of her body against his, the absolute rightness of it. When they pulled apart, both breathing hard, Ava rested her forehead against his. Saturday can't come fast enough. Tell me about it. They stayed on the porch until the cold drove them inside, reluctant to let the evening end. At the door, saying goodnight required more willpower than Ryan wanted to admit. See you in the morning? Ava asked, lingering on his front step. Wouldn't miss it. He watched across the dark lawn to her house, already counting the hours until their run. When her porch light flicked off, Ryan locked up and climbed the stairs, checking on Lily one more time before heading to his own room. She was sprawled across her bed in sleep, one arm flung over her stuffed penguin, the very picture of childhood security. Ryan stood in her doorway for a long moment, feeling the weight of responsibility and love settle over him. He was doing this right, he told himself, building something real with Ava while keeping Lily at the center of every decision. It was possible to have both. It had to be. Thursday at work brought the kind of crisis that Ryan had learned to expect in project management. A major client had changed requirements 3 weeks before launch, and the development team was threatening mutiny. He spent most of the day in emergency meetings, negotiating timelines, managing expectations, putting out fires. By the time he left to pick up Lily, his head was pounding and his patience was worn thin. But the moment he saw her running toward him from the school entrance, backpack bouncing, hair escaping from its ponytail, his mood lifted. Dad, guess what? Mrs. Henderson said my science project was one of the best in the class. That's fantastic, kiddo. I knew all that work would pay off. He opened the car door for her, waiting until she was buckled in before sliding into the driver's seat. What do you want for dinner? We could order pizza, celebrate your science success. Can we invite Miss Ava? The question had become reflexive now, this automatic inclusion of Ava in their plans. Ryan wasn't sure when it had happened, this shift from neighbor to family, but somewhere along the way, Ava had woven herself into the fabric of their daily life. Sure. I'll text her. Ava arrived half an hour later with a chocolate cake she'd picked up from the bakery near her office. For the science champion, she announced, presenting it to Lily with theatrical flair. Over pizza and cake, Lily explained her project in exhaustive detail, something involving plant growth and different types of soil. Ava asked questions that showed she was actually listening, not just performing interest, and Lily bloomed under the attention. You should come to Career Day. Lily said suddenly, mid-bite of cake. Mrs. Henderson asked if any parents wanted to come talk about their jobs. You could talk about your work, Miss Ava. It sounds way more interesting than most of the parents. Ava glanced at Ryan, silently asking permission. He nodded. I'd love to, Ava told Lily. When is it? 2 weeks from tomorrow. Dad was going to come, but he said his job is boring. I said talking about software project management might not be the most exciting presentation for third graders, Ryan corrected with a smile. Whereas nonprofit marketing, Ava grinned. Absolutely riveting. I'll make sure to bring props. That night, after Ava had gone home and Lily was asleep, Ryan's phone rang. Claire's name appeared on the screen, and he almost didn't answer. But responsibility won out over avoidance. Hey, Claire. Ryan, hi. I just wanted to call and, well, I wanted to apologize for last week, for being late, for arguing with you in front of Lily. You were right about everything you said. The apology caught him off guard. Okay, thank you for saying that. I mean it. I've been thinking a lot about what you said about being consistent, about showing up. She paused, and Ryan could hear traffic in the background. I want to do better. I want to be better for her. That's good, Claire. Really, Lily needs that. I know. And I know it's going to take more than just saying it. I have to actually follow through. Another pause. Can I ask you something? Sure. The woman I saw last week, Ava. Is it serious? Ryan considered lying, deflecting, protecting his privacy. But he and Ava had agreed on honesty, and that had to extend to all the complicated parts of his life. Yes, it's serious. Good. That's good. You deserve to be happy, Ryan. I know I wasn't the right person to make you happy, but I'm glad you found someone who is. The generosity in her words surprised him. Thank you. That means a lot. Is she good with Lily? She's wonderful with Lily. Patient, kind, genuinely interested in her. They've really connected. Then I'm happy for you, for all of you. Claire's voice softened. I need to go, but I wanted you to know I'm going to try harder. I'm going to call Lily this weekend, and I'm looking at my calendar for the next visit. I'll give you plenty of notice this time. Lily would appreciate that. After they hung up, Ryan sat with the conversation for a while, trying to process this new version of Claire. She'd been defensive and erratic for so long that this self-awareness felt almost foreign. He wanted to believe it would last, that she'd actually follow through. But he'd learned to temper hope with realism when it came to his ex-wife. Friday arrived with clear skies and the crisp bite of autumn air. Ryan's last day before the date felt endless, every meeting dragging, every email requiring twice the usual concentration. He left work at 3 on the dot, collecting Lily from school and heading straight to the grocery store to pick up ingredients for the weekend. Why are you being weird? Lily asked as they navigated the produce section. I'm not being weird. Yes, you are. You keep checking your phone and smiling at nothing. Ryan pocketed his phone, embarrassed at being so obvious. I'm just in a good mood. Because of your date with Miss Ava tomorrow? Among other things, Lily selected apples with the careful deliberation of a produce expert. Are you nervous? A little bit. Is that weird? No. Maya's older sister goes on dates and she says everyone gets nervous, even adults. Lily added the apples to their cart. I think Miss Ava is nervous too. She asked me yesterday what your favorite food is. She did? Yeah, I told her you like basically everything except mushrooms. Was that okay? Ryan laughed, the tension in his shoulders easing. That was perfect, kiddo. Thank you. That evening, Ava texted him. I know we said we'd wait until tomorrow, but I have something for you. Can I come over for just a minute? Of course. Lily's doing homework, but we're home. She appeared at his door 5 minutes later, holding a book. I was at the bookstore today and saw this. Thought of you. Ryan took the book, turning it over to read the cover. It was a history of civic education in America, exactly the kind of thing he'd spent hours reading in college, back when he'd thought teaching might be his path. You remembered, he said, voice rough with emotion. Of course I remembered. You spent half of junior year telling me about the importance of informed citizenship and how education was the foundation of democracy. Ava smiled. Some things stick with you. He pulled her into a hug, the book pressed between them. Thank you. This means more than you know. I have a good memory for the things that matter. She pulled back just enough to look at him. Tomorrow night. I'm really looking forward to it. Me too. Pick you up at 7? Perfect. Saturday morning dawned bright and impossibly slow. Ryan tried to focus on normal weekend activities, cleaning the house, doing laundry, making breakfast, but his mind kept drifting to the evening ahead, to the reservation he'd made at Marco's, to the question of whether he was ready for what this date represented. Because it did represent something. Not just two people having dinner, but a deliberate choice to build something lasting. A commitment to move forward together instead of just circling around possibility. At 3 o'clock, Rebecca arrived to collect Lily for the sleepover. His daughter was vibrating with excitement, her overnight bag packed and repacked 3 times to ensure she had everything necessary for optimal sleepover success. You sure you're okay with this? Rebecca asked at the door, Maya already dragging Lily toward the car. I know it's her first sleepover away from home in a while. She'll be fine. She's been talking about it all week. Ryan handed over Lily's bag. Thank you again for doing this. My pleasure. Maya's been counting down the days. Rebecca paused, lowering her voice. And you deserve a night off. Enjoy your evening. After they left, the house felt impossibly quiet. Ryan stood in the empty living room, feeling the absence of his daughter's constant motion and chatter. This was what he'd signed up for when he'd agreed to the sleepover. Time alone. Freedom to focus on his own life for once. It felt both liberating and terrifying. He showered and dressed with more care than he'd taken in years, trying on 3 different shirts before settling on a dark blue button-down that Ava had once complimented. Standing in front of the mirror, Ryan barely recognized himself. Not because he looked different, but because the man staring back at him looked hopeful, open, like someone who believed good things were still possible. At exactly 7 o'clock, Ryan knocked on Ava's door. She opened it wearing a deep green dress that made her eyes look almost luminous, her hair loose around her shoulders. For a moment, he couldn't speak. Too much? Ava asked, suddenly uncertain. Perfect, Ryan managed. You look absolutely perfect. The drive downtown was easy, filled with comfortable conversation about work and weekend plans and everything except the weight of what this evening meant. Marco's was tucked into a quiet street in the Pearl District, the kind of place that felt intimate without being pretentious. The host seated them at a corner table, candlelight casting soft shadows across the white tablecloth. Ryan ordered wine, Ava studied the menu, and for a few minutes they played at normalcy. Just 2 people on a date, nothing more complicated than that. But halfway through their appetizers, Ava set down her fork and looked at him directly. Can we talk about what we're doing here? She asked. I thought we were having dinner. You know what I mean, what we are to each other. Where this is going. She took a breath. I know we said slow and honest, and we've been doing that, but I feel like we're both still holding back a little, still protecting ourselves against the possibility that this might not work. Ryan set down his own fork, giving her his full attention. You're right. I have been holding back, because the stakes feel so high. If I let myself fall completely and it doesn't work out, it's not just me who gets hurt. It's Lily. And I can't do that to her lightly. I understand that. I do. But Ryan, I'm not going to hurt her. I'm not going to hurt you. This is real for me. More real than anything I've felt in years. Ava reached across the table, taking his hand. I love you. I'm in love with you. And I know we've only been together a few weeks. And maybe it's too soon to say that, but it's true. The words hung in the air between them, honest and vulnerable and absolutely terrifying. Ryan felt something in his chest crack open, years of careful protection falling away. I love you too, he said, and the relief of saying it out loud was almost overwhelming. I've been trying not to rush it, trying to be responsible and careful. But the truth is, I've been in love with you since college, and having you back in my life feels like a miracle I don't quite deserve. You deserve everything, Ava said fiercely. You deserve to be happy, to be loved, to have a partner who chooses you every single day. And I'm choosing you, Ryan. I choose you and Lily and this complicated, beautiful life you've built. Ryan stood, moving around the table to pull her into a kiss that felt like coming home. The other diners probably stared, but he didn't care. All that mattered was this moment, this woman, this overwhelming certainty that he was exactly where he was supposed to be. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless, Ava was smiling. So we're doing this. For real. No more holding back. No more holding back, Ryan confirmed. They finished dinner in a haze of happiness, the food almost secondary to the connection crackling between them. Every conversation felt weighted with meaning, every touch electric with possibility. By the time dessert arrived, Ryan was seriously reconsidering his plan to take Ava for a walk along the waterfront afterward. We could skip the walk, Ava said, reading his mind with unsettling accuracy. We could, Ryan agreed. They paid the check and left, the evening air cool against their flushed skin. In the car, Ava reached for his hand, threading their fingers together. Your place or mine? She asked. Ryan thought about his empty house, about the fact that Lily wouldn't be home until tomorrow afternoon. Mine, if that's okay. More than okay. The drive back to Oak Street felt both infinite and instantaneous. Ryan parked in his driveway, and they sat for a moment in the sudden quiet. Are you sure? He asked, giving her one last chance to reconsider. We don't have to rush this. I'm sure. I've never been more sure of anything. Ava turned to face him. I want this. I want you. All of you, not just the careful parts you show the world. They made it inside the house, barely. The door had barely closed before they were kissing again, years of waiting and wanting finally finding release. They stumbled through the living room, up the stairs, Ryan pausing only to make sure all the curtains were closed, all the lights off, the world outside firmly shut out. In his bedroom, with moonlight streaming through the window and Ava's dress pooling on the floor, Ryan felt the last of his defenses fall away. This wasn't just physical, though that part was overwhelming in its intensity. This was vulnerability, trust, the willingness to be completely seen by another person. Afterward, they lay tangled together in the darkness, hearts still racing, skin still flushed. Ava traced lazy patterns on his chest, her head resting on his shoulder. I love you, she said again, like she was testing out the words, making sure they still fit. I love you too. Ryan kissed the top of her head. Stay tonight? I'm not going anywhere. They talked for hours, the kind of deep, meandering conversation that only happens in the dark hours of the night, about their fears and dreams, about the years they'd spent apart and whether they'd needed that distance to become people who could actually do this right, about Lily and how to blend their lives without disrupting the stability she needed. I want to be part of her life, Ava said. Really part of it, not just the fun neighbor who shows up for dinner sometimes. But I don't want to overstep. She has a mother, even if Claire is inconsistent. You're not overstepping. You're showing up. There's a difference. Ryan pulled her closer. Lily needs consistency, love, someone who chooses to be present. You're giving her all of that. What if Claire gets better? What if she actually follows through on being more involved? Then Lily will have more people who love her. That's not a bad thing. He paused, choosing his words carefully. There's room in her life for both of you. She doesn't have to choose, and neither do I. They fell asleep sometime after 2, wrapped around each other in the tangle of sheets and blankets. Ryan woke briefly around dawn, disoriented by the warmth of another body beside him. But then Ava shifted in her sleep, murmuring something unintelligible, and he remembered. She was here. She loved him. This was real. He pulled her closer and drifted back to sleep, feeling more at peace than he had in years. Sunday morning arrived with soft light and the smell of coffee. Ryan woke to find Ava already up, wearing one of his t-shirts and standing at his bedroom window with a mug in her hands. Morning, he said, his voice rough with sleep. She turned, smiling. Morning. I hope you don't mind I made coffee. Mind? That might be the most attractive thing anyone's ever done. He climbed out of bed, pulling on sweatpants before joining her at the window. Outside, Oak Street was quiet, the neighborhood still sleeping. What time is it? A little after 8. We have a few hours before you need to pick up Lily. Ava handed him her coffee mug, and he took a grateful sip. I was thinking we could make breakfast. Have a normal domestic morning, if you want. I want. Ryan kissed her, tasting coffee and promise. I want all the normal domestic mornings I can get. They made pancakes together, moving around his kitchen with the ease of people who'd been doing this for years instead of just one night. Ava found ingredients without asking, knew which pan he preferred, automatically made enough for 3 even though Lily wouldn't be home for hours. Force of habit, she said when Ryan pointed this out. I grew up in a house where we always cooked for more people than we're actually eating. My mom said you never knew when someone might stop by. They ate breakfast at the kitchen table, legs tangled under the tablecloth, making plans for the week ahead. Small plans, normal plans. Who would cook dinner on which nights, whether Lily might want to go to the pumpkin patch next weekend, how Ava's presentation for Career Day was coming together. It was ordinary and perfect, and everything Ryan had stopped letting himself hope for. At 11:30, Ryan's phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca. Girls had a blast. Maya's asking if Lily can stay for lunch too. That work for you? He showed Ava the message. What do you think? Take the extra time? Absolutely. We could go for a walk, or... She trailed off, a mischievous smile playing at her lips. Or we could go back upstairs, Ryan finished. I like the way you think. They made it to the bedroom this time without the urgency of the night before. This was slower, sweeter, weighted with the knowledge that this wasn't just one night. This was the beginning of something lasting. Later, tangled together again in the afternoon light, Ava's phone rang. She groaned, reaching for it on the nightstand. It's my ex, she said, frowning at the screen. David, he never calls unless... She answered. Hello? Ryan watched her expression shift from confusion to surprise to something that looked like concern. When did this happen? A pause. No, I understand. But David, I'm in Portland now. I have a life here. Another pause, longer this time. I need to think about it. Can I call you back? She hung up, staring at the phone for a long moment. Everything okay? Ryan asked carefully. That was unexpected. Ava set down the phone, turning to face him. David's been offered a job in Portland. A really good job, actually. Head of operations for a tech startup. He wanted to let me know he was moving here. Ryan felt his stomach drop. When? Next month. He's already accepted the position. She reached for his hand. He also said, and I quote, that he hoped we could try again, that the distance had given him perspective on what he'd lost. The words hit Ryan like a physical blow. He tried to keep his expression neutral, tried to be the mature adult who didn't panic at the first sign of complication. But all he could think was that he'd just found Ava, just allowed himself to believe this could work, and now her ex-husband wanted her back. What did you tell him? He managed. That I needed to think about it. But Ryan... She cupped his face, making him look at her. There's nothing to think about. I'm not getting back together with David. That marriage is over. I ended it for good reasons, and those reasons haven't changed. But he's coming here. You'll see him around, run into him at events. That's going to be complicated. Maybe, but it doesn't change how I feel about you. Ava kissed him softly. I meant what I said last night. I choose you. I choose this. One ex-husband moving to town isn't going to change that. Ryan wanted to believe her, but he'd learned that life had a way of upending even the most certain plans. Still, when Ava looked at him with such absolute conviction, he couldn't help but hold on to hope. Okay, he said finally. But if it gets complicated, if he makes things difficult, you'll tell me. I'll tell you everything. No secrets, remember? That's what we agreed. They lay there for a while longer, the afternoon stretching toward evening, the real world slowly intruding on their perfect bubble. Eventually, they had to get up, get dressed, return to the responsibilities of actual life. Ryan picked up Lily at 3, listening to her excited recap of the sleepover's highlights. She'd stayed up past midnight, eaten too much candy, and watched movies that were probably slightly too old for her. In short, it had been perfect. Can Maya come over next weekend? She asked as they pulled into the driveway. We want to build a fort in the backyard. We'll see. Maybe. Ryan noticed Ava's car in her driveway, and something in his chest eased. She was still here, still choosing to be part of this. That evening, the three of them had dinner together, as if nothing had changed. But everything had changed. Ryan and Ava kept catching each other's eyes across the table, small smiles and knowing looks passing between them. And when Lily went upstairs to take a bath, Ava stayed behind to help clean up. Thank you, Ryan said as they loaded the dishwasher, for last night, for this morning, for being so sure when I was spiraling about David. You don't have to thank me for that, but you're welcome anyway. She dried her hands, moving to stand in front of him. I meant every word, Ryan. You're what I want. This life is what I want. He kissed her, slow and deep, pouring everything he felt into it. When they pulled apart, both breathing hard, Ava was smiling. I should go home, she said reluctantly. Let you have your evening with Lily. I'll see you tomorrow morning for the run. Wouldn't miss it. Ryan walked her to the door, stealing one more kiss before she left. Through the window, he watched her cross to her own house, watched her turn at her door to wave at him. He waved back, feeling something settle in his chest that felt dangerously close to contentment. Upstairs, he found Lily in her pajamas, hair still damp from the bath, sitting on her bed with her homework spread out around her. Dad, she said as he appeared in the doorway. Can I ask you something? Of course. Are you and Miss Ava going to get married? The question caught him completely off guard. Wow, that's a pretty big question, kiddo. I know, but Maya asked me today if Miss Ava was going to be my stepmom, and I didn't know what to say. Lily looked up at him with those two wise eyes. Is she? Ryan sat on the edge of her bed, taking a moment to gather his thoughts. I don't know what the future looks like exactly, but I do know that Ava is very important to both of us. And if things keep going the way they're going, then yeah, maybe someday she could be part of our family officially. Would that be okay? If she was my stepmom? Would it be okay with you? Lily considered this seriously. I think so. I like her a lot, and she makes you happy. You smile more when she's around. She makes me very happy, Ryan confirmed. But you'll always be my number one priority. Always, no matter what happens with Ava or anyone else. I know, Dad. Lily returned her attention to her homework, apparently satisfied with this answer. Can you help me with this math problem? They worked through homework together, the conversation about Ava and the future tabled for now. But as Ryan helped his daughter understand fractions, he thought about what she'd said, about Ava being part of their family officially, about the possibility of a future that included more than just the two of them. And for the first time in 3 years, that future didn't feel like a betrayal of the life he'd built. It felt like evolution, like growth, like the natural next step in a journey he was finally ready to take. 2 weeks later, David called again. Ava was at Ryan's house helping Lily with a poster for Career Day when her phone lit up with his name. She excused herself to the porch, and Ryan tried not to listen through the window while pretending to focus on cutting construction paper. That was short, he said when she came back inside, her expression carefully neutral. He wanted to meet for coffee, to talk about his move, get recommendations for neighborhoods. Ava sat down at the table, picking up the scissors she'd abandoned. I told him I was busy. You can talk to him if you need to, Ryan said, meaning it even as the words felt like swallowing glass. I trust you. Ava looked up, her eyes softening. I know you do, but I don't need to talk to him. That chapter is closed. She returned her attention to Lily's poster, adding careful letters that spelled out the nonprofit's mission. The only chapters I'm interested in are the ones we're writing together. The words settled over Ryan like a warm blanket, easing the tension he'd been carrying since that first phone call. He watched Ava work with his daughter, their heads bent together over the poster, and felt the truth of what they'd built settle into his bones. This was real. This was lasting. And no ex-husband moving to Portland was going to change that. Career Day arrived on a gray Friday morning. Ryan took the afternoon off work to attend, sitting in the back of Mrs. Henderson's classroom while various parents presented. A firefighter, a veterinarian, an architect. Then Ava stood up, and Lily's face lit up with pride. My name is Ava Brooks, and I work in nonprofit marketing, she began, her natural warmth filling the room. Which means I help organizations that do good work tell their stories so more people can support them. She'd brought props like she'd promised, photos of clean water projects, testimonials from families they'd helped, even a short video that made the third graders gasp with interest. But what struck Ryan most was how she kept glancing at Lily, including her in the presentation with small smiles and knowing looks, making his daughter feel seen and special. After the presentations ended and parents filtered out, Lily ran up to Ava and hugged her fiercely. You were the best one, she declared with the absolute certainty of a child who'd made up her mind. I don't know about that, Ava laughed. The firefighter had a pretty cool truck. Yeah, but you made people care about stuff that matters. That's better than a truck. Ryan caught Ava's eye over Lily's head, saw the emotion there, the way this simple moment had cracked her open. When Lily ran off to collect her backpack, Ava turned to him. "Thank you for letting me be part of this," she said quietly. "Thank you for wanting to be." That evening, after Lily was asleep and the house had settled into nighttime quiet, Ryan found himself on the back porch with Ava beside him, wrapped in blankets against November's chill. They'd fallen into this rhythm, stolen moments after bedtime, conversations that stretched into the late hours, building a life in the margins of responsibility. "I got a message from David today," Ava said, breaking the comfortable silence. "He's officially moving next week. He wanted to know if I'd help him find an apartment." Ryan felt the old familiar tension spike. "What did you say?" "I gave him the name of a good realtor and wished him luck." She turned to face him fully. "Ryan, I need you to understand something. David was my past. A significant past, yes, but finished. You and Lily are my present and my future. There's no competition here." "I know. Rationally, I know that, but you're scared," Ava finished softly. "I get it. You've been hurt before, left before. It makes sense that you'd worry about it happening again." "It's not just about me anymore," Ryan said. "Lily's already attached to you. If you left, if this didn't work out, she'd be devastated." "Then it's a good thing I'm not going anywhere." Ava took both his hands in hers, her grip firm and certain. "I love you, Ryan Mercer. I love your daughter. I love this life we're building together. And I'm choosing it every single day, not because it's easy or convenient, but because it's real and it's mine and it's exactly what I want." The words unlocked something in Ryan's chest, years of careful protection finally releasing. "I love you too. So much it scares me sometimes." "Good scared or bad scared?" "Good scared, the kind that means something actually matters." He pulled her closer, wrapping the blanket around them both. "Marry me." The words surprised him as much as they surprised her. Ava pulled back, eyes wide. "What?" "Marry me," Ryan repeated, more certain now. "I know it's fast. I know we probably should wait longer, be more practical about it. But I've already wasted 10 years not being with you. I don't want to waste any more time." "Ryan, you don't have to answer now. I don't even have a ring. But I needed you to know that's where I'm headed. That's what I want. You, me, Lily, a family, for real." Ava was crying now, tears streaming down her face in the porch light. "Yes, yes, you'll think about it," or yes, I'll marry you, you impossible man." She was laughing and crying at the same time, pulling him into a kiss that tasted like salt and promise. Yes to all of it, the family, the future, everything. They held each other under the November stars, and Ryan felt something shift fundamentally in his understanding of his own life. For 3 years, he'd believed his story was about survival, about being enough for Lily, about managing the hand he'd been dealt. But this, Ava in his arms, saying yes to a future together, this was about actually living, about choosing joy instead of just enduring. The next morning, they told Lily over pancakes. Ryan had worried about how to explain it, how to make sure she understood this wasn't about replacing anyone or changing what they had. But Lily just looked at them both with those wise 8-year-old eyes and said, "So Miss Ava is going to be my stepmom for real?" "If that's okay with you," Ava said carefully. Lily considered this for approximately 3 seconds. "Does that mean you'll live here? In our house?" "Eventually, yes. If your dad and I get married, I'd move in with you both." "Cool. Can we get a dog then? Because 3 people is definitely enough to take care of a dog." Ryan and Ava exchanged glances, both trying not to laugh. "We'll talk about the dog," Ryan said. "One big change at a time." Over the following weeks, they settled into their new reality. Ava spent more nights at Ryan's house than her own. They introduced the idea to friends and family, weathering the expected surprise with grace. Ryan's brother Marcus met Ava and immediately pulled Ryan aside to tell him, "Don't screw this up. She's perfect for you." Claire called when she heard the news, and Ryan braced for conflict, but she surprised him. "I'm happy for you," she said, and sounded like she meant it. "Truly. And I want you to know I've been thinking about what you said, about being more consistent. I've been talking to a therapist about it, about why I struggle so much with showing up." "That's good, Claire. Really good. I know I can't undo the past 3 years, but I want to try to do better going forward, for Lily's sake. She paused. Would it be okay if I called her once a week? Set up a regular time so she knows to expect it? She'd love that. And Claire did follow through. Every Sunday evening at 7, she called, and Lily would curl up on the couch with the phone, telling her mother about school and friends and the dog she was campaigning for with increasing creativity. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. It was something. David moved to Portland in early December, and Ryan steeled himself for the inevitable awkwardness. But when they finally ran into him at a coffee shop downtown, it was surprisingly undramatic. David shook Ryan's hand, congratulated them both, and actually seemed genuine about it. She deserves to be happy, David told Ryan while Ava was ordering their drinks. And she seems really happy with you, so thank you for that. I'm the lucky one, Ryan said, meaning it completely. On Christmas morning, Ryan woke to find Lily jumping on his bed at an ungodly hour, shouting about presents and Santa, and could they please wake up Ava because she was sleeping in the guest room and missing everything. Ava appeared in the doorway moments later, hair disheveled, wearing one of Ryan's old college sweatshirts, looking absolutely perfect. They opened presents in the living room, the three of them creating new traditions that would layer over Ryan's carefully constructed single-parent routines. Ava had gotten Lily a telescope and a book about constellations. Lily had made Ava a bracelet using the pattern they'd learned together. And Ryan had finally actually gotten Ava a ring. Simple, elegant, exactly right. I know I already asked, he said, sliding it onto her finger, but I wanted to make it official. Ava kissed him, not caring that Lily was watching with undisguised delight. It's perfect. You're perfect. This is perfect. By spring, they'd set a date for a small wedding in June. Ava had mostly moved into Ryan's house, her belongings gradually filling the empty spaces. They'd even gotten a dog, a rescue mutt named Charlie who Lily adored and who had a concerning habit of stealing socks. The wedding itself was simple. Ryan's backyard, close friends and family. Lily serving as maid of honor with fierce pride. Marcus officiated, reading vows that Ryan and Ava had written themselves. When Ryan promised to choose Ava every single day to build a life worthy of the second chance they'd been given, he meant every word with a certainty that went bone deep. And when Ava promised to love both him and Lily, to show up consistently, to be part of their family in all the ways that mattered, Ryan saw his daughter's face light up with the kind of joy that came from feeling truly, completely safe. The reception lasted into the evening, neighbors and friends celebrating under string lights in the backyard where Ryan had spent so many nights wondering if he'd ever feel whole again. Now, watching Ava dance with Lily while Marcus made terrible jokes and Claire sent a congratulatory text that actually seemed heartfelt, Ryan understood something fundamental. He hadn't needed to be fixed or completed. He'd been whole all along, just waiting for someone brave enough to see it. And Ava had seen him, really seen him, not despite his complications, but because of them. She'd chosen the full reality of his life, the beautiful mess of single parenthood and ex-wife drama, and an 8-year-old with strong opinions about everything. Later that night, after guests had left and Lily was asleep upstairs and the yard was quiet except for the sound of summer insects, Ryan and Ava sat on the back porch together. She was still in her wedding dress. He'd lost his tie hours ago, and they were both barefoot and exhausted and happier than either of them had ever been. "We did it," Ava said softly, her head resting on his shoulder. "We actually did it." "We did." Ryan kissed the top of her head, breathing in the familiar scent of her shampoo, feeling the absolute rightness of this moment. No more waiting. No more what-ifs. Just us, Ava agreed, building something real. And that's exactly what they did. Not perfectly. Life was too complicated for perfect. But honestly, bravely, choosing each other and Lily every single day. Building a family not from obligation or fear or the need to fix broken things, but from love. From the willingness to show up, to be seen, to risk everything for the possibility of something extraordinary. 10 years ago, they'd let fear keep them apart. But this time they'd been brave enough to try. And that, Ryan thought, as Ava's breathing evened into sleep beside him, made all the difference. The second chance they'd been given wasn't just about romance or redemption. It was about becoming people capable of choosing love over safety, of building something lasting instead of just surviving. It was about understanding that the best things in life often required the most courage. And as Ryan drifted toward sleep with his wife in his arms and his daughter safe upstairs and a future full of possibilities stretching out before them, he felt nothing but gratitude for the moving truck that had blocked his driveway all those months ago, for the universe's terrible sense of humor that had made them neighbors, for every choice, every risk, every honest conversation that had led them here, to this moment, this family, this life, exactly where they both belonged.